Aloha and good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, June 26, 2025, and the time is now 9:02 a.m. Will the Committee on Zoning and Planning meeting please come to order? I would like to welcome committee members Tupola and Vice Chair Waters. I understand Council members Cordero and Okimoto should be joining us shortly. Although remote verbal testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under HRS Section 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue notwithstanding loss of audiovisual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide verbal testimony on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up in two ways: in person in the council chamber and remotely via video conference or phone. Before testifying, each person shall state their name for the record. Each speaker will be limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. All persons who registered to testify in person will be called upon first. Persons who did not register will be given an opportunity to offer testimony after the registered testifiers. Once in-person testimony has concluded, I will proceed to the remote testifiers. When I call your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number, please follow the prompts to unmute. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 113 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For verbal testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Thank you. I wanted to welcome Councilmember Okimoto to the meeting. Moving to agenda item number 1, Resolution 25-155. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Robert W. Harding, Carrie J. Beluomini, trustee, Carol A. Haynes, Nichelle Brombat, Sean Nicholson, Janet L. Clark, trustee, Alec John Wang, trustee, Shannon A. Oba, Jonathan Nguyen, and Kahena Vai Estates, LLC, to allow for the construction of 4 new single-family dwellings, additions to 3 existing dwellings, a total of 8 new individual wastewater systems, 4 for the new dwellings and 4 to replace cesspools at existing dwellings, and accessory agricultural structures on an approximately 207,457 square foot zoning lot in the R5 residential district and Ag 2 general agricultural district located at 53424, 53428, 53432, 53437, 53438, 53440, 53450, 53452, and 53458 Kamehameha Highway in Hauula, and identified as tax map key 53005-070. Members, we have posted on the agenda a proposed CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. The project zoning lot was submitted to a condominium property regime to create 11 condominium units within one zoning lot, and the project involves 10 of the 11 condominium units. The new dwellings are located on condominium units 4, 5, 7, and 9. The additions to existing dwellings are located on condominium units 2, 3, and 8. The accessory agricultural structures are located on condominium units 6 and 11. The project includes all current and reasonably foreseeable development on the project site because consideration of development within the special management area must take into account cumulative impacts, and segmentation of a larger development is not allowed. An environmental assessment was prepared for this project, and the Department of Planning and Permitting issued a finding of no significant impact on December 16, 2024. All new and existing project dwellings are located within the R5 residential zoning district, and the accessory agricultural structures are located within the Ag 2 general agricultural district. The project site is located along the Mauka side of Kamehameha Highway and does not directly front any beaches or coastal areas, but is technically considered a shoreline lot because a portion of the zoning lot is within the 60-foot shoreline setback area. Notices of order for violations have been issued and are outstanding on condominium units 2, 5, 6, 8, and 11. The applicants must first obtain an approved special management area major permit before building permits can be issued to resolve these violations. So in addition to new construction, this resolution is meant to address these violations. The city does not provide sewer service to the area, and condominium units 1, 2, and 3, and 8 have cesspools installed. The project includes conversion of these cesspools to individual wastewater systems and installation of new individual wastewater systems for the 4 proposed new dwellings. The State Department of Health has jurisdiction of wastewater systems, which have a separate review and approval process. No historical cultural resources have been previously identified on this project site. However, previous archaeological studies conducted by Cultural Surveys Hawaii for the installation of a 36-inch water main along Kamehameha Highway immediately east of the project site identified the presence of 23 iwi kupuna. Since there is a reasonable chance that subsurface archaeological sites and human burials may be present on the project site, Condition B1 of the proposed CD1 provides that prior to the issuance of a construction permit or building permit for the project, the applicant is required to prepare and submit an archaeological monitoring plan to the State Historic Preservation Division for its acceptance and approval. Less than 10% of the project site is anticipated to be impacted by 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100. None of the new dwellings or accessory agricultural structures will be impacted, but existing dwellings on condominiums units 1, 2, 3 may be impacted. Condominium Unit 1 is not proposing any new development but involves a cesspool conversion, and Units 2 and 3 plan to elevate the living areas more than 5 feet above the base flood elevation. Joining us in the council chamber is Roy Ire from Hawaii Engineering Group, Inc., the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 351-2025.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to present today. My name is Roy Ire, and I'm of Hawaii Engineering Group, representing the multiple owners at Kahenawai Estates. The site, this is a map depicting the location of the subject property that is within the flood zone AE, VE, and X. This slide here shows the TMK, or the tax map property that surrounds, there's some sliver of properties that's within that subject property that have been probably subdivided sometime in the past. Now this slide shows the existing, the slide to the left shows the existing dwellings that has been there prior to this condominium property regime conversion. And the slide to the right with the red circles indicates the proposed 4 new dwellings. Now this slide shows what is being proposed for each individual units. And please note that Unit 10, there's no proposed projects at that location. And the next slide, I'll indicate why. See, we've done a wetland delineation of that property, and which has been submitted to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who had approved the delineation of the wetland. And it cuts through the ag portion of the property, which is to the west, and also on the south side of the property. Unit 10 is probably about approximately 80% covered by wetland. So there are no existing structures on the wetland, and no new structures are being proposed within the wetland. Now, the subject property is not adjacent to the shoreline, but the 60-foot shoreline setback touches the front portion of the subject property, therefore has been considered as a shoreline lot. Now, this is a flood map that shows the various flood zones, the VE, which barely touches the front portion of the property, and the residential lots are within the AE flood zone. This is a map, the slide that indicates the separation of the types of soils on that subject property. Now, approximately 29% of that property that is on the Makai side of the lot are Jaka sand, and the remainder, 71% of it, are Mokulea clay. The sea level rise of 2 foot, it touches approximately 5% of the lot, very little, which is in Unit 10. And sea level rise 3'2" impacts about approximately 15% of the lot, primarily on Unit 10 again, and a sliver on the north portion of the subject property. Then the shoreline access, there's no impact to any public access to the beach. And Kamehameha Highway separates the lot, the subject property from the beach, and the public has direct access to the beach. Now, our application displayed all the SMA requirements we've done, and we met with the community multiple times to come to some resolution. These are the ordinance that our application had, we demonstrated that we're in compliance with the HR Hawaii Revised Statutes and Chapter 21, Chapter 25, and 26. And in summary, we completed, in addition to all those application requirements, we've completed our environmental assessment, and a FONSI was issued on December 16 in 2024. Right. This concludes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Members, are there any questions for the applicant's agent? Councilmember Okimoto?
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, good morning. Thank you for sharing the presentation and also sharing that you had reached out to the community and the association and the members. Many times people come before us and they say that they've done that, and then we hear different things, different responses when we hear back from the community. But from your experience, when you reached out, what was the response? I know you mentioned it was positive, but again, I've heard different accounts in different settings.
There are concerns about, we haven't finalized the design of the proposed SMA. So we've gone back and finalized and presented them what the project would look like. Some of the concerns they had was that they were concerned about monster homes. Being that these are CPR lots, and the lots would limit. And there's also an ordinance that restrict monster homes per se. So we addressed those concerns with them, and they're also concerned about the increase in property tax, but those are outside our control. And so. And
this was with the neighborhood board, or this is with the association? I'm just trying to figure out how many people have been.
There were quite a few. On the first meeting, there were approximately over 25 people there. Councilmember was there with his staff members. There were, I would say, pretty close to 25 to 30 people were there on the first meeting. Second meeting, it dwindled down to about 15. And finally, in the final meeting, very few people showed up.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it when,
In fact, DPP had hosted a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's good when we can reach out to the community and let them know. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I also wanted to welcome Councilmember Cordero to the chamber. If there are no other questions,
Quick question.
Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. I'm just curious, what is an individual wastewater system? How does that work?
It's somewhat like a septic system, but there's a treatment plant where the waste will go into, and it will process the wastewater, and then will discharge it into the so-called evaporation field, or what most people call it, a leach field. And so basically what it does is a one step further from the standard septic system.
Any chance of hooking up to the county system?
Pardon?
Any chance of hooking up to the county system? Is that a possibility?
That you're going to have to talk to a civil engineer who specializes in that.
Where would the leach field be located?
They will be located on the subject parcels, individual units.
So each unit would have their own leach field?
Yes. A small field. I mean, because the size of the fields and the tanks are measured off of the number of bedrooms. So they base it off of the number of occupants and not bathrooms.
Obviously, that's better than a cesspool, but does it comply with state law
Yes.
that requires us all to?
In fact, the State Department of Health encouraged an individual wastewater system.
Yeah. So it treats the wastewater and then pumps it into a leach field that would then seep into the ground.
Right.
Is that how it works?
Right. Technically, I don't know how that works, and the
Yeah.
engineer.
I mean, it's just so close to the ocean, right? Right across the street. But okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony, proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify? Please come forward and begin by stating your name. Seeing none, proceeding on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item or anyone standing by?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Moving forward, for the administration, the Director of Planning and Permitting or their representative?
Michael Catt with DBP here for the department. We're in support of the CD1.
Members, are there any questions for the director? If not, I'm going to move forward with my recommendation. The chair recommends that Resolution 25-155 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-155 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 2, Resolution 25-168. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Shinichi and Yusuko Fujimoto to allow for the construction of a second-story addition to an existing single-unit dwelling and the installation of a new in-ground hot tub on an approximately 25,115 square foot shoreline lot, Zone RD Residential District, located at 146 South Kalaheo Avenue in Kailua, and identified as tax map key 43012-026. We have posted on the agenda a proposed CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. The second-story addition to one of the existing dwellings involves the connection of an existing one-story guest cottage to an existing four-car garage structure to accommodate a new stairway and the addition of a new second story above the dwelling and the garage. The project also involves interior renovations and roof replacement for the other existing dwelling, retiling of the existing pool deck and replacement of the existing driveway and pedestrian gate, which involve structural and non-structural improvements that are not considered development for purposes of an SMA major permit, but are part of the overall project proposal. The project requires the excavation of approximately 5.05 cubic yards of soil material for the installation of the hot tub and approximately 8.22 cubic yards of soil material for the new structural foundation support and grade beams. A small portion of the excavated soil will be used as on-site backfill, and the remainder of the excavated soil will be removed. No importation of structural fill material is proposed. On February 21st, 2021, the State Historic Preservation Division issued a written determination of its review of the project impacts on historic properties pursuant to HRS 6E42 indicating that no archaeological inventory survey has been conducted for the project site, but that archaeological surveys conducted in the vicinity have documented historical properties, including iwi kupuna and cultural layers. The State Historic Preservation Division requested that an archaeological monitoring plan be prepared and implemented. Condition G1 provides that prior to the issuance of a construction permit or building permit for the project, the applicant is required to prepare and submit an archaeological monitoring plan to the State Historic Preservation Division for its acceptance and approval. The project site is not anticipated to be impacted by flooding or coastal erosion as a result of 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100. Joining us in the council chamber is Nicholas Capria from Ethos Architects LLC, who will provide a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 348-2025. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, and thank you. As you said, my name is Nicholas Capria. We're from Ethos Architects, and with me today is Janine Shinoki Evans, who is the lead architect and president of our company, and she will be presenting on our behalf.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Janine Shinoki Evans, and with Nick Capria, we're the architects and applicants for the SMA permit for the Fujimoto's. The Fujimoto site.
Can you speak a little louder or
Sorry.
into the mic, please?
The Fujimoto site is located on Kailua Beach, about 2 blocks from Kalapawai Market, and that is also the nearest beach access for the public. The 2 dwelling residences reside on about half an acre right on the beachfront, and the renovation project will not affect the front portion of the lot, as was mentioned. Next slide. So the areas in red indicate the areas of renovation, and the area in yellow indicates the area where we will be digging within the soil to create a new foundation for the second floor. So if you back up one slide. So these are the images looking from the front of the house and from the rear and from the left and right of the existing structures, which are 1 story right now. Next slide. Next slide. So these are images of the proposed modifications. And as you can see, most of the work will happen across the garage and the unit in the rear. This is a rendering of the 2nd story addition, and we did present all of these to the neighborhood board, and we did receive some comments from the surrounding neighbors, mostly related to construction activity as it relates to how will they use the shared driveway. And they were advised that all of the activity will be limited to the Fujimoto's lot, as they have a very long driveway and all the construction vehicles will either park there or within their front yard, and none on the shared driveway. Our archaeological monitoring plan has already been submitted to SHPD, and we're just waiting for their letter of approval. Thank you very much. Any questions for us?
Members, are there any questions for the applicant's agent? If not, thank you so much. Before we call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify? Please come forward and begin by stating your name. Seeing none, proceeding on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item or anyone standing by?
Chair, there are none.
Moving forward for the administration.
Good morning, Chair and Council members. Christy Keller for the DPP, and we support the CD1.
Members, are there any questions for the director? Yes?
Thank you. Real quick
Vice
one.
Chair Waters.
I'm just curious, how long did it take for DPP to process this application?
We have 10 days to accept or reject. We accept it as complete within the 10-day period and transmitted to council within the, we have 60 days to hold a public hearing and 45 days from that to transmit it to council. So this one would be, I guess that adds up to around 100 days.
100 days, okay. Not bad, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Waters, your question is a good one. As you know, there have been legislation previously introduced that would delegate the authority for SMAs for single-family dwellings to DPP, and it is still pending. I may consider just bringing it up for discussion, but before we move forward, can I just ask a capacity question? In addition to yourself, how many staff do you have at DPP, including your supervisors who deal with SMAs?
I think it's 15. Yeah.
15 of you?
Yes.
And are you the lead?
I am the senior planner for the land use approval branch. I work under Joyce Shoji, who's under Liz Krieger. So
with regard to the applications that come in, you don't have a problem in meeting any deadlines?
I have not had problems meeting deadlines with SMA. We have very strict deadlines, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Members, if there's no other questions, I'm going to move forward with my recommendation. Thank you. The chair recommends that Resolution 25-168 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-168 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 3. For action, Resolution 25-78. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to the State of Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Fish and Wildlife, to allow for the acquisition of an additional easement, construction and installation of physical improvements to the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail, and the implementation of strategic management plan for the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail on approximately 4.6 acres of land, covering portions of 5 zoning lots zoned R5 Residential District, R10 Residential District, and P1 Restricted Preservation District, located at Ka'elepulu Drive in Lanikai. Members, we have posted on the agenda a proposed CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. By way of background, during World War II, the U.S. Army installed 2 artillery observation stations at the crest of Kiaʻāina Ridge, which are commonly known as the Lanikai pillboxes. The trail leading to the observation stations was originally a military access road. When the observation stations were later decommissioned, the parcel with the observation stations and the access road were privately owned until February 1994, when the State Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Fish and Wildlife, assumed jurisdiction by Executive Order 3610 for the purpose of protecting and preserving the land for the Na'ala Hele Trail program. As part of the subdivision process for the Bluestone condominium, which is located immediately mauka of the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail, the city required a public access easement over a 10-foot wide strip of land owned by Bluestone. The trail meanders into this easement. In September 2021, the Bluestone Association of Apartment Owners and the State Department of Land and Natural Resources entered in a new easement agreement that allowed for the state's management and upkeep of the 10-foot wide easement on the Bluestone property. A second pathway runs parallel to the former military access road. The project's physical improvement component includes acquiring the second pathway as an additional 20-foot easement makai of the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail along the lower hillside to accommodate a wider pathway. The acquisition of this additional 20-foot wide easement is being separately negotiated between the applicant and landowners Kimberly and Timothy Smythe. Finally, the state has an easement at the trailhead that runs parallel to the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail on the Makai side and is located in the middle of a private access road owned by Pu'ulani Kai. There is an additional 10-foot wide strip of private property also owned by Pu'ulani Kai that is located between the trail and the access road easement and runs from the beginning of the trailhead to the second pathway on the Smythe property. The Department of Land and Natural Resources and Pu'ulani Kai entered into talks to realign the state's current easement of the access road so that the realigned easement will be adjacent to the Bluestone access road, Bluestone easement. But the parties did not reach an agreement, and the state decided to forego realigning the easement. We anticipate a significant increase in the number of visitors to the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail after project improvements are made. So to address concerns that trail user may illegally trespass on portions of the Pu'ulani Kai property, I looked into the possibility of extinguishing the state's easement at the trailhead that is located in the middle of Pu'ulani Kai's private access road and subdividing the 10-foot wide strip of Pu'ulani Kai's property located between the access road and trail into 2 5-foot wide parcels to allow Pu'ulani Kai to grant to the state in fee simple the 5-foot wide parcel abutting the trail. If this was done, the trail would be 15 feet rather than 10 feet wide at the trailhead. However, the state indicated that this option is not feasible at this time because the transaction involves a complicated exchange of land that requires approval by the State House and State Senate by a supermajority vote and a lengthy land subdivision process. The state believes as well that a 10-foot wide pathway at the trailhead entrance is adequate. The project's physical improvement components include recontouring the trail, using slopes, cross slopes, and dips to incrementally move water away from the trail, constructing naturally shaped switchbacks, a zigzag trail for climbing a steep slope, anchored and edged with native rock, creating mini watersheds along segments of the trail, and revegetating damaged areas outside of the trail pathway. The project's strategic management component includes installing signage to establish the Na'ala Heli Trail rules, installing access boundary markers and natural symbolic fencing along the trail pathway, installing interpretive signage, initiating a reservation and fee system, implementing an adaptive management plan to address erosion and stormwater, private property, trespass, hiker safety and education, and native plant restoration, and establishing a nonprofit community stewardship program. None of the project zoning lots are shoreline lots, and they are not anticipated to be impacted by coastal hazards. An archaeological impact survey from the project site was conducted by TCP Hawaii. The survey identified the 2 artillery observation stations as part of the state inventory of historic places. The project does not propose any changes to the observation stations. No new cultural or archaeological properties were identified, and there is no indication that the trail was a traditional Hawaiian trail. In July 18th, the State Historic Preservation District issued a letter concurring that no historic properties will be affected by the project and no further historic preservation documentation is needed. The Kiaʻāina Ridge line and surrounding shoreline area, traditionally known as Ka'ohao, is culturally significant to Native Hawaiians. The traditional and customary practice of hula occurs along the Kiaʻāina Ridge line. The shoreline area is a historic fishing ground, but the project site is not a shoreline zoning lot and will not impede Native Hawaiian traditional and customary fishing activities. Project improvements are anticipated to increase the volume of visitors to the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail, which may prevent kumu hula from perpetuating the practice of hula along the ridgeline. Native Hawaiian descendants of the area are not opposed to the project, but support a trail scheduling and reservation system that includes closure times, when access would only be available to vetted Hawaiian cultural practitioners for specific and appropriate purposes. The applicant plans to establish a community-based stewardship program involving a nonprofit community organization to assist with implementing visitor management measures to be outlined in a management plan. Condition E of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to implement the trail scheduling and reservation system to, among other things, preserve the Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practice of hula along the ridgeline. There have been long-standing concerns about the lack of parking and restrooms for visitors to the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail, and these problems have been spilling over into the Lanikai neighborhood. While the applicant has jurisdiction over the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail itself, it does not have direct jurisdiction over private or city roadways. And I'm working on the implementation of the Lanikai Transportation Management Plan that would prohibit vehicle parking along Lanikai Loop and limited parking hours in certain areas. The applicant indicated it does not have the capacity or capability to provide for public restrooms at or near the trailhead. As a part of the community-based stewardship program, the applicant plans to increase the presence of volunteers and staff at the trailhead to help direct vehicle and pedestrian traffic, inform visitors about appropriate places to park, such as at Kailua Beach Park or walking to the trailhead, and advise trail users on ways to limit impacts to the surrounding residents. The applicant also plans to implement outreach and educational efforts to notify potential hikers of the limited parking availability and encourage visitors to use the bus to get to the trailhead or Uber, and alert potential hikers of the lack of restrooms at the trailhead. These requirements are included in Condition F of the proposed CD1. Joining us in the council chamber is Marigold Zoll from the State Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Fish and Wildlife, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 350, 2025.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Marigold Zoll. I'm with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife at the Department of Land and Natural Resources. I'm the Oahu Branch Manager. And with me today is Teresa Dean with PBR Hawaii, our consultant on this project who is supporting us, and Aaron Lowe, our Oahu Trails and Access Program Manager. And thank you, Chair, for the excellent summary of the project and the history of it. So as you said, the project area starts at Ke'elepulu Drive, and it includes the 4.6 acre parcel of land that the state of Hawaii owns, along with the easement that the state purchased with the parcel of land and the easement that Bluestone condominiums conveyed to the state in 2021. Over the years, we've had an extensive public participation engagement process. We've been about 8 years in the making of this project. It's been quite some time. And so there's been a number of community outreach events. Let's see, so the legislature appropriated capital improvement project funds to develop the management plan, and then they also appropriated funds to install the trail improvement through the construction project. We hired PBR to do the trail plan and to complete the environmental assessment and also all of the entitlement permitting that would be required with the improvements. We've worked with the adjoining property owners, the Kailua and Lanikai community at large, and we did broader public outreach to Oahu visitors and hikers over the years. This slide shows the history of our meetings with the community. The final environmental assessment was published in February 2024, and then after which we began the process of applying for permits to construct the construction project. We did hold a volunteer workday in September 2024, and we attracted 50 volunteers, and we have a lot of confidence that the community will come out and support our stewardship efforts once we roll it out at a bigger scale. So as Chair mentioned, there are many issues surrounding the popularity of this trail that we don't have the control to address. And so we are focusing on the things that we can impact, like the trail tread improvements and trail user behavior. Our trail management strategies focus on addressing the erosion that's coming off of the trail and impacting the nearshore waters, and also to provide a physical presence with trail stewards at the trailhead to try to promote better hiker behavior and to alert folks about safety concerns and And then also so that they can alert DoCare if there are enforcement issues that need to be addressed. Community co-stewardship is being pursued with a local Hawaiian group and the community associations, and we're really excited to engage the community in this way because we really feel that this is how we have the best chance of being successful of addressing these issues. So the first phase of the project will center on the approach, the lower part of the trailhead, and the slope, the first slope going up the ridge. That's what's contributing the largest volume of sediment load to the nearshore waters. That's really the most important part of the trail to address. We're going to be using sustainable trail design switchbacks and utilizing native rock and soil for improvements to the greatest extent possible. And of course, at the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, we are strong advocates of using native plants for restoration purposes, and so we'll be trying to revegetate the eroded slopes with native plants with the help of the community. In 2018, and to support the environmental assessment, we conducted a hiker survey. And the results of that survey really informed the managed access approach that we put forward in the management plan.
Before you continue, this is an updated PowerPoint?
Yes. I have a few slides talking about the number of hikers.
Did you guys share this with us, the updated version?
I believe so. Yeah, yesterday it was emailed to the city council.
Oh, to the council, but it just would be nice. Was I supposed to go get that? Would it have taken much for you to send it to me since you know that I was concerned about this? I'm actually looking at your agent. I'm just saying, I have to tell you, I have not been pleased. By the way, DLNR, you guys have done a terrific job, okay? And I appreciate you negotiating with me or having discussions about that stuff, but I need to tell you that for us to be having this hearing on an issue that I've raised to you, and you don't want to make sure that I get it, you just think sending it to the clerk's office, is that what you did? I'm just saying, I've had a problem just with your agents' representation throughout this process. I know they put in a lot of work, but I've been on this council for 4.5 years, and not once did they ever have the courtesy, since I have to deal with community impacts that are off the trail, to come to my office and ask me what I think. And I believe that if they did that to you, we would have been able to negotiate that 15-wide pathway if we were given more time. So I'm just saying you're giving a presentation that we don't even have the PowerPoint for. Go ahead.
I apologize for that, Chair. And we will do a better job in the future to ensure that you're well advised of the plans and the documents. So to date, the visitor management progress, we've launched various...
Can you go back? Can you go back? Do you have numbers?
I do. I have updated numbers. These are the numbers that we used to develop the management plan, and then I have updated numbers.
And where are the numbers? I don't see it. What is the numbers? Tell me what the numbers are now per day, annually, and what are you projecting with the improvements?
Sure. So I'll skip to that. So we are working with the University of Hawaii at Manoa in the School of Travel Industry Management with Dr. Lee, and he's looking at cell phone data to try to get a sense of how long people use the trail, what their behavior is on the trail, where they're going, and things like that. And so that, coupled with our visitor volume counts that the trail stewards are conducting on a daily basis, are informing our reservation system moving forward. So these are the numbers that the stewards have counted every day that they have been out there. There are some gaps in data because they're not there 24/7, 7 days a week. You can see on some days there are very high numbers, nearing 900 per day, but on average it's closer to 200 to 400 people per day.
I can barely see the numbers, so it would have been nice for your bullet points to have reflected that. And what is the current annual rate of hikers? The annual rate?
I'm sorry, I didn't tally up the total number of hikers per year. But on this slide, you can see the total number of hikers observed at 1 hour intervals throughout the day. And so this is a summary of those time slots and the number of hikers we've observed. And so you can see that there are more hikers in the morning than there are in the afternoon. And then this slide shows the number of surveys conducted per day of the week on the left, and the average number of hikers per day on the right. And so you can see that there were more surveys conducted on Thursdays than on Saturdays. And so we need to even out our survey effort to get a better idea of how many people are using the trail per day.
It's really hard for me to take this seriously because I can't even see any of the numbers. So, and I'm sorry to be upset. It's just that I've only shared my concerns about a couple of things, and this was one of them. And so I don't even feel you're having charts, and I can't even see the numbers. Anyway, can you just finish your report, please?
Right, so in summary, we thank the Zoning Committee for your advocacy and including Native Hawaiian groups in the co-stewardship of this special place, and we concur with the special conditions of this resolution. Should we be successful in obtaining an SMA permit, we would be seeking a Conservation District use permit and then begin constructing the lower part of the site. And we thank you and respectfully request your recommendation for approval.
Members, are there any questions for the applicant's agent or for the applicant? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Ms. Zoll. Thank you for your presentation. I do have a question relating to the mini watersheds. Are they going to be replacing current mini watersheds along the trail?
So the concept of mini watersheds is that as the trail falls, it accumulates water, and then it can either spill into the trail or it can spill off of the trail. And so we would be using our sustainable trail design practices to remove the water off the trail in as many places as we can so that it doesn't collect the sediment and transport it out to the sea.
And currently, how is the water collected now?
It just runs down the trail and it collects sediment and then transports it out to the near shore.
Okay, understood. And how close will it be to the abutting private properties, or how will it impact the abutting private properties if you're going to be creating these mini watersheds?
Well, so if we remove the water from running down the trail at more frequent intervals, then the impact is a lot less than if it runs down the trail and gets larger in volume. So it would be a less impactful way for the water to be dealt with.
Okay, understood. And are there any other things in addition to watersheds and we see fencing and any other flora and fauna that's going to be planted, or new flora and fauna that's going to be planted to then abut closer to any of the private properties? Because I do see, in addition to Bluestone and the other state properties that there are, and correct me if I'm wrong, are the 12 TMKs listed here, are they homes? Are they private properties, residential homes?
Yes, they are homes. The homes are at the bottom of the cliff, and so the very edge of the farthest piece of their property abuts the trail area on the ridge top.
Okay,
so the trail is quite far from where the homes actually are.
Okay, I do understand that. I do know that as we do have a lot of ridges across the island, and myself in general would be like Moanalua, of course. You know, we've been talking before about that, but in general, dealing with impacts over time as it relates to whether it be sediment or any types of just natural occurrences that then kind of break down materials that then end up in private properties that people have to deal with in the future. And I'm asking because what will DLNR be placing to mitigate those impacts? I know that it's over a cliff, I know that it's further away, but things happen, whether it be an increase in rain or whatnot. So I just want to know what the plans are to mitigate that in these designs.
Right, so the trail going along the ridge, if we actually follow the legal access, it brings it away from the edge of the ridge and away from impacting the homes below. And so we think that this is a better solution for those homeowners. And the water will dissipate into that, the larger watershed that's above Bluestone, but there'll be time for that water to soak into the ground and to not impact the Bluestone condominiums.
Okay, thank you. And is at the very bottom, are there maybe rocks or rock walls that were erected by DLNR that's like right before either Bluestone or the other private properties on the other side?
I believe there was a rockfall mitigation project that the state did below some of the pillboxes that was then turned over to the private property owner.
Oh, so it then has to be maintained by the private property owners now?
There was just that one instance of that rockfall mitigation project happening.
Oh, I see. So the rockfall mitigation isn't actually, I guess, cohesive along the whole trail and among the other major property owners?
No, yeah, this was just in one location to address a specific concern.
Okay.
And that was the agreement that was arrived at, that the state would build the rockfall wall and then would turn it over to the landowner. But the trail is on the other side of the ridge top, and so we don't believe that the trail itself will impact the private property owners below.
Okay, thank you. I know we hope those, but with either increase in rain or whatnot, we really don't know how things can go either way. So just wanted to bring that up, and definitely understand. I've been on this trail a bunch my whole life, so I definitely understand what we're talking about here. I was just wondering how the I guess erection of different mini watersheds can then impact like possibly the bottom, the other sides. So thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, I think that maybe saying mini watersheds is kind of an over. I mean, basically, we're using each length of trail that goes downhill and then spilling the water off, and so I'm not sure if I would characterize it as a watershed per se, but it's just a water control measure on the trail.
Okay, that makes it more understandable. And okay, understood. I'll ask more questions later. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me the time.
Thank you. I did want to make a comment. You made a comment about you believe that landowners are not impacted, and I disagree with you, and I've stated that. For me, it's not just about numbers. It could be even one landowners. And, in my district and other districts where we have popular hiking trails, including illegal hiking trails, there has been a significant impact to abutting landowners. And I told you specifically about the remaining landowner that you guys are not going to have an agreement with, that your current easement allows hikers to ni'ele, and instead of going up the trail, to go up the easement to go on a lookout by their property and do whatever they want. And that's an impact. But I just want to make sure that you are careful with saying that there's no impact. And I think that's the difference between my view versus your view. Vice Chair Waters, did you have any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thanks for being here. I just needed clarification on these numbers because it was kind of unclear to me on the line graph. You said in 2018, community-led trail count identified 945 adult hikers per day. So I get it that that's an older year, so around 900. And then when you go to there's no page numbers here, but the one that says visitor volume counts, graphic representation, the one with the very, very skinny lines with a lot of numbers.
Yes.
This says that maybe at some point in July, between May 2024 and June 2025, the highest on a single day was 920. And then the one below it that has thicker bars says that at 10 a.m., there were 6,481 observed users, which is drastically different than 900. And then on page 14 with the separate graphs, and I guess one is surveys and one is, I guess, surveys completed, it looks like the average daily user is around 481. So can you just clarify, is it
Sure.
400, 900, or 6,000 a day?
It varies.
But those are drastically different numbers. I mean,
Right.
6,000 to 400.
So on the first graph, those are the number of people that our stewards counted on that day. And so you can see at the high, there's that 900 hikers in July, and that maybe that's 4th of July. It could be a holiday or something.
Yes,
We
yes.
have those high numbers. And then throughout the year, those numbers are lower on per day. On the other graph, those are combined numbers for that entire year period. So on
At 10 a.m. in the
at 10
whole
a.m.
year.
Yes, at 10 a.m. we got however many people counted in that time slot
For the whole
for
year.
the whole year.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Okay, that makes sense. So you're saying it probably varies anywhere to the low hundreds to maybe as much as 1,000 a day.
Correct, yes.
Then you're saying that maybe in a year, the highest amount of users, well, you're only saying that at 10 o'clock, the highest amount of users was 6,481. But then maybe throughout the whole day, in one day, what do you think the number is?
Right, so you can look at the data in different ways, right? And so this is just one way of looking at it, like how many users were there at this particular time to get, okay, this is the most popular time of day that people are hiking this trail. And so that's where we should deploy our trail stewards to target those popular times, right?
Understood.
Yeah.
It was a lot of different numbers, but thank you for the clarification. That does seem just like a heavy amount of usage, especially for residents to be alongside of it.
Right, and I'm sorry if I misrepresented that there's no impact to the trail. I was, in my mind, I was thinking about the trail improvement and the trail tread per se, the physical trail improvements. The hiking impact on the community has been enormous, and we definitely are wanting to address that, and we are hoping that our reservation system and this better trail managed access will help us address those problems. So, yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. First, thank you, DLNR, for malamaing our trail system and upkeeping the trails and even improving them. I've done this hike many, many times and used to live in Lanikai at one time in my life. It's on the internet, it's called a moderate trail with a steep incline in the beginning. I would imagine that the steep incline in the initial part of the hike is what's going to be mostly improved, right? Because I can't see senior citizens and kupuna, unless you're in decent shape, make it up because you'll slip, especially if it rains. Is that where a lot of the improvements are going to take place in the initial part?
That's right. The initial approach from Ka'elepulu Drive up that first slope is what we're going to be addressing with switchbacks. It'll make it a little bit easier to navigate that hillside and a little bit safer, but it'll still be a challenging hike.
My concern then is if it's going to be more accessible and you're going to get even more people doing the hike. I was just playing around on my phone because I forgot how to do it, but on Google, you can see at any given time how many people are there, like, because they track you on your phone, right? And you can see for updated use. But my experience has been it's just crowded all day, every day. So I'm more interested in the visitor management progress to date. I know you have a slide here, and you talked about a permitting system. Can you give us an update on how that's going? Because I love that idea. Not just for hiking trails, but for a lot of scenic lookouts and other things that are often used by visitors?
Sure. So the Division of State Parks has implemented a permitting system for Diamond Head, Leahi hike. And they essentially, my understanding is that they kept the number of users the same per day, but they spread out those users so that they were less impactful and it was actually a better user experience. And so we're working with Tyler Tech to develop a reservation system for this trail. And we're planning to use a similar model where we'll have it be free for residents. And eventually, if we get our rules passed for Na'alahele administrative rules, we would be able to charge a fee for visitors. Some of these things don't have the, we need to do rulemaking in order to implement the fee system, but the reservation system we can roll out immediately. We have the authority to do that. We just can't charge for it.
That's great news. How close are you to doing that? And is that really going to happen, or we're still just discussing whether or not we want to do it?
No, we are in active conversations with Tyler Tech at the moment, and we are figuring out how they can modify the system to include the reservation system for us.
Yeah, because it is a huge impact on the neighborhood.
It is.
And I can say that from personal experience. And you see the cars parked in just really, really awkward places that make it dangerous, not only for beachgoers, but residents as well. So I think that's a great idea. And we're looking for your leadership because the city can do the same thing with the Cocoa Head Stairs as an example. We're experiencing the same thing with visitors looking on the internet and just flooding the area. Lastly, is there room at the trailhead maybe for a bicycle parking area? Because on the internet, they encourage people to park in Kailua and walk Kailua Beach, but even at Kailua Beach, the parking gets really, really full. But an area where you could park your bicycle, maybe a Biki station or something like that, to get the cars out of Lanikai.
Yeah, we realize that driving to the trailhead is a really huge problem for the area. The trailhead itself is 10 feet wide, and so we can look into the possibility of a bike station. I don't know if that space will accommodate it, but we have a good working relationship with the golf course and with Bluestone and the neighbors, and we're hoping that as things progress, we can make those kinds of, accommodations and figure out better ways to have people get to the trail.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair, I don't know if there's any room for bikes there, okay? But I do believe that, and it might not be popular either, but as the Department of Transportation Services implements its transportation management plan, I think because of the limited parking that will happen, they are considering alternative modes of transportation, including bikes on the Makai side, on the beach side. So this is, I think overall, that's why I'm saying that the parking is so interconnected to what's going to happen with the trail. And so I have every confidence the Department of Land and Natural Resources is going to do a good job on the trail itself. Direly needed improvements, which Representative Martin has led the charge in. My concern has been the impacts, and I just felt that it's mostly been the city who has to pick up that slack, and we're dealing with it now. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any room over there. At the moment, there's tons of Uber that are actually, when you go up that road, Ka'elipulu, and go to Bluestone, just circling. And, but it's challenging for the people who live at Bluestone, of course, as well as the neighbors on that street. Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Councilmember Okimoto? Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Thank you. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Please come forward. Seeing none, proceeding with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have one, but the testifier has not logged on.
Is this Representative Martin?
Yes, Chair.
Representative Martin, are you online?
Testifier is not logged on.
Oh, she's not logged on. Okay, well, I do know that Representative Martin strongly supports this measure. She was the legislator who secured the funds from the state for the needed improvements, and she has also submitted testimony to that end. So greatly appreciate her work. And first, so you said there's no, in addition to that, is there anyone else online who would like to testify on this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we're going to move to the administration, the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Good morning, committee chair and committee members. Christy Keller for DPP, and we support the CD1 as proposed.
Thank you. I did have a question before I open it up to members with regard to the reservation system, and how is what role does DPP playing? Who is going to hold the Department of Land and Natural Resources accountable with regard to making sure that it's an efficient system so that we could carefully manage the number of hikers who go up to the trail?
This particular permit is for special management, which is environment, but I would imagine that it would spill over into the Department of Transportation Services in the that you referenced the study that they're doing.
With regard to the number of visitors?
Well, it's outside of the scope of the SMA. I don't know if Director Apuna has a better answer.
Vice Chair Waters, do you have any comment on that? Who would be the enforcer for the reservation system?
Can we make it a condition of the SMA permit that before granting it, they have to come up with a reservation system?
It actually has a condition in there. I'm talking about enforcement of it. But you know what? We could always have an oversight hearing on informational briefing on the impacts of the increased visitor count and whether or not the program is efficient. Anyway, thank you so much. Members, any other questions for DPP? Thank you. Just wanted to highlight that the project involves much needed improvements. I'm going to go forward my recommendation, correct, to the Kiaʻāina Ridge Trail, but as a result of these improvements, we anticipate a significant increase in visitors to the trail, and we should all be aware that this will impact the surrounding Lanikai neighborhood. While I tried to find solutions for some of these impacts, particularly illegal trespass on private property adjacent to the trail, it appears that there is not enough time to consider alternatives because state funding for the project will lapse soon. The project was years in the making, and I hope that for future projects, more thought and consideration will be given to address community impacts and the concerns of adjacent private property owners and consultation with city council members. The chair recommends that Resolution 2578 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-78 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Members, is it okay to take a few minutes, a break? I'm going to take a 5-minute break at this juncture. The next action item is going to be, I would think, a little lengthy, and I just wanted to make sure that we took a 5-minute break. Thank you. Aloha and welcome back, everyone. The Committee on Zoning and Planning is reconvening. Moving to agenda item number 4, bill for action, Bill 37, 2025. This bill amends the state land use district boundary map, Haleiwa Quadrangle, by reclassifying 7.292 acres of land in Haleiwa, Oahu from the state land use agricultural district to the state land use urban district. Members, we have posted on the agenda a proposed CD1 version of the bill, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. We have also circulated a proposed hand-carried CD1 version of the bill, OCS 2025-0534, which I submitted. The hand-carried CD1 makes the same amendments as the posted CD1, but includes a condition requiring the submittal of an updated traffic impact analysis report prior to the submittal of a zone change application. While this is a state land use district boundary amendment, HRS 2053.1 allows the county land use decision-making authority to determine district boundary amendments involving land areas of 15 acres or less, so long as the land is not located in the state land use conservation district and is not designated as important agricultural lands. The property subject to the state land use district boundary amendment is an approximately 7.292 acre portion referred to as the petition area of an approximately 7.525 acre zoning lot identified as tax map key 62005-002, referred to as the Haleiwa property. The remaining 0.233 portion of the Haleiwa property is already classified as within the state land use urban district and consists of a portion of Opaiula Road. Basic Project, Inc. owns the Haleiwa property, and Haleiwa Backyards, LLC is the applicant. The Haleiwa property is located within the Haleiwa Special District. This state land use district boundary amendment is the first step for the applicant to obtain approvals for the planned development of the Haleiwa property with approximately 150 to 156 low-rise apartment dwelling units, approximately 30,000 square feet of commercial space, parking, and a wastewater management system. Once the site is classified as within the state land use urban district, it would allow for a rezone of the site from the AG1 restricted agricultural district to the B1 neighborhood business district and A1 low density apartment district. Opaiula Road is currently zoned P2 general preservation district, and while excluded from the petition area, it will be included in the zone change application. By way of background, in 1991, a large property was subdivided to facilitate the development of the Joseph P. Leong Highway and severed the Haleiwa property from other agricultural zone properties in the state land use agricultural district. The Haleiwa property was used as a staging area for the construction of the highway and has not been in productive agricultural use since that time, and has been disconnected from the irrigation systems of the properties on the other side of the highway that are used for agricultural purposes. The petition area is currently vacant and includes undeveloped open space, agricultural roads, and a stockpiling site for sand. The petition area does not involve important agricultural lands. Since the reclassification of the petition area from the state land use agricultural district to the state land use urban district would allow for reasonably priced housing with access to schools, services, amenities, and job opportunities, it is consistent with the objectives and policies of the Hawaii State Plan relating to population, the economy, and housing, and the chapters in the Oahu General Plan relating to population, housing, and communities. The reclassification of the petition area is also consistent with the vision, policies, and guidelines of the 2011 North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan, which identifies the petition areas entirely within the community growth boundary, designates the petition area as country town, and identifies the petition area for infill development. Under the current plan, the petition area is appropriate for development, and the proposed project is consistent with the purpose and intent of the state land use urban district. The Department of Planning and Permitting indicated that they have prepared a draft updated North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan, and while it has not yet been distributed for public comment, it will likely be transmitted to the Planning Commission and the Council later this year or early next year. However, the proposed boundary amendment is being considered by the council now, and consideration of this proposal requires consistency with the applicable development plan that is in effect at the time of consideration. The reclassification of the petition area will contribute to the general welfare and prosperity of Oahu residents by allowing for the development of much-needed low to moderate income housing in the Haleiwa Special District, particularly for Oahu residents who work in the nearby retail and commercial areas of Haleiwa. The proposed CD1 separates Section 1 of the bill into two separate bill sections, with Section 1 of the bill covering the bill purpose and council findings, and Section 2 of the bill setting forth the state land use district boundary amendment for the Haleiwa Quadrangle. The proposed CD1 also amends renumbered Section 3 of the bill relating to conditions of approval to first amend conditions A and B to require Basin Project, Inc. to satisfy the requirements in HRS 205-3.5A. Second, remove Condition C relating to affordable housing, Condition E relating to an access easement for Kane Hall Road, and Condition G relating to the protection of endangered species. If this ordinance is enacted and the project moves forward, these conditions are more appropriately addressed as part of the zoning change approval process, when more project details will be available. Third, re-letter Condition D as Condition C, relating to an update to the traffic impact analysis report, and clarified that the initial traffic impact analysis report was dated May 21st, 2015, and prepared by SSFM International. Fourth, remove Condition F, relating to an on-site individual wastewater system, and does not include the Planning Commission's recommended amendments to Condition F relating to wastewater use. The proposed project now includes a proposed on-site wastewater management system that would generate reusable water to irrigate canopy trees and other landscaping. Approval of the individual wastewater treatment system is under the jurisdiction of the State Department of Health, which has stated that it has no objection to a wastewater treatment system with R1 or R2 irrigation and a backup effluent leach field being constructed on site. Fifth, remove Condition H relating to an annual report. This condition is not needed because the first two conditions are continuing conditions, and the third conditions must be satisfied before a zoning change application is submitted. Finally, it does not include the Planning Commission's recommendation for a new condition relating to community engagement. If this ordinance is enacted and the project moves forward, there will be more opportunity for community engagement as a part of the zone change approval process when more project details will be available. The zone change approval process includes neighborhood board presentations and community outreach prior to the submittal of the zone change application, processing by the Department of Planning and Permitting that includes a public hearing, processing by the Planning Commission that includes taking public testimony at its meeting, and 3 readings before the City Council that includes a public hearing on second reading. The project will be reviewed for compliance with the Haleiwa Special District Design Guidelines and Requirements. I would like to note that this bill was discussed and public testimony was received at 2 prior zoning committee meetings, at the regular zoning meeting held the morning of May 29, 2025, and at a special zoning meeting held the evening of June 17th. I realize that there has been considerable community opposition to this boundary amendment, including from members of the North Shore Neighborhood Board, as well as the neighborhood board itself. However, consistent with the standards and criteria for the approval of a petition for state land use boundary amendment under ROH 23-1.6, the boundary amendment for the petition area first will contribute to the general welfare and prosperity of Oahu residents by allowing for the development of much needed low to moderate income housing in the Haleiwa Special District, particularly for Oahu residents who work in the nearby retail and commercial areas of Haleiwa. Second, it will help address the city's housing crisis by allowing for the development of decent, reasonably priced housing with access to schools, services, amenities, and job opportunities. And finally, it is consistent with the Hawaii State Plan, Oahu General Plan, North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan, and the purpose and intent of the State Land Use Urban District. Joining us in the council chamber is McKenna White from Planning Solutions, Inc., the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 347-2025.
Aloha and thank you, Chair, council members, members of the gallery, and members of the public. Let's see. My name is McKenna White. I'm a planner with Planning Solutions, and I'm here to present the aforementioned request. This is the...
Can you make sure that you can speak into the mic? Yeah,
yes,
pull
ma'am.
it up.
Yes, ma'am. Is that
thank
better? This is the third presentation to the committee regarding the bill, so I will try to be concise. First, I'll provide some information regarding the location and condition of the subject parcel, and then I'll get into why Bill 37 is before you. Importantly, Bill 37 does not approve any development or use of the site. The site is between Kamehameha Highway and Joseph P. Leong Highway. As shown here, it is outside of the special management area. The site is primarily in the restricted agricultural Ag 1 zone. Although zoned for agriculture, it is not well suited for agricultural use due to its shape, its topography, the lack of access to agricultural water, its proximity to residential and commercial uses, and its soil conditions after use as a staging area during construction of the bypass. There's ample agricultural land nearby that does not suffer from these same issues. Okay. This aerial photograph helps identify the project site and shows that it is currently undeveloped and unused. It is a remnant parcel formed when the Department of Transportation acquired right-of-way for the bypass. As you can see to the right of the parcel, there's ample agricultural land, much of it which is unused, Malka of the bypass. Addressing coastal hazards, the site is, as you can see from the slide, it's outside of the sea level rise exposure area. It's outside of any flood zone or special flood hazard zone. It's outside of the tsunami evacuation zone. Addressing the community growth boundary, it is within the community growth boundary as established in the North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan and the County Town District. The country town district. The country town district is the hatched area in the figure, and you can see that the project site is in the central portion of that area. Okay, Bill 37 would amend the state land use district boundary. If approved, the bill would move 7.292 acres of the parcel from the state agricultural district, which is shown in yellow here, to the state urban district. A small portion of the parcel is already in the urban district, shown here at the top in red. The neighboring residential, commercial, and industrial parcels to the west are already in the state urban district. By amending the district boundary as proposed by Bill 37, the state would no longer have a role in governing the development or use of the site. The City and County of Honolulu's land use ordinance will continue to govern development and use of the parcel. The bulk of the parcel, the 7.3 acres shown in yellow here, will remain in the restricted agriculture Ag 1 zone. Only agricultural use with a small farm dwelling would be allowed. Bill 37 will not change the range of uses that can occur on the site. The proposed state land use district boundary amendment is necessary before the applicant's proposal or any other private non-agricultural use of the parcel may be considered. If Bill 37 passes, the applicant could only proceed with its proposed development after obtaining a city zone change. The city zone change process requires further community outreach, consultation with agencies, review by the Department of Planning and Permitting, and the Planning Commission, and a city council bill. Okay. Now, to get to the applicant's proposed project, this conceptual plan shows the general layout of the applicant's planned development. The proposed project is an infill project that has been designed to directly reflect the contents of the North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan. The location within the growth boundary and town district, the mix of uses, neighborhood, commercial, and residential, the type of housing, multifamily, the density of the housing, 20 units per acre, and the design of the housing, 3 levels not exceeding 40 feet in height, were all taken directly from the Sustainable Communities Plan. Chapter 5 of that plan indicates that the project is the sort of development that should be given priority because it is seeking zoning approvals consistent with the plan, and the project will involve the use of vacant land within the community growth boundary. This slide shows how applicable affordable applicable affordable housing rules may be applied to the proposed project. The message here is that the affordable housing rules apply to this project. Those rules were developed for projects that include or focus on the more profitable, higher end of the housing market. The proposed project is not luxury housing. Under the current concept, all units will be the same, and all are designed for the workforce or gap group, which are terms used to describe families earning up to 120% of area median income, or AMI. Therefore, both the designated affordable units and the market rate units will be affordable to the gap group. Furthermore, the 3,800 figure is provided for informational purposes only. We anticipate that the market rate will be closer to the 80% AMI monthly rent than the 120% AMI monthly rent. During the zone change process, an affordable housing agreement will be developed. We'll be discussing the content of that agreement with the community before it is finalized. That agreement could be different than what is shown in this table. That concludes my presentation. Mahalo nui. Thank you for your attention and consideration of Bill 37.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions before I turn it over to the other council members. On the conceptual project plan page, where are you proposing commercial space? I can't hear you.
My apologies, Chair. The commercial space would be closer to the main road, so on the bottom side of the parcel is shown.
On the Opaiula Road?
Correct.
And where? Which is it? Is it the green shaded building? What is it? Is it all of that section in the middle?
In that segment there. That would also include the farmer's market area in the conceptual plan.
You mean the one in the middle?
Yes, ma'am.
You should have a PowerPoint pointer so that you could show that.
Yes,
okay, on the parking front, many residents have expressed concern about parking and that specific location. So with your projected number of units, both for commercial as well as the housing space, what is your projection for the number of parking spaces that you are going to have? And whatever your answer is, what is that number based on?
The number would be based on the formulas provided for that type of housing from the city. So it would meet all requirements based on the type of.
And have you considered with the 156 and everything, what your projected parking spaces is going to look like?
Yeah, that has been considered, and all parking could be accommodated on site.
Give me a number.
Well, I apologize, Chair. I do not have a number in front of me.
So is it 156 times 2, minimally? I mean, I'm just asking basic questions that you should actually have.
Yes, Chair. Do you mind if I confer with my client for one moment?
Okay.
Okay, I apologize. I do not have the number in front of me. The requirement is 1 per 1,000 square feet. I do know that all of the parking would be accommodated on site. The exact number I do not have in front of me, and I apologize for that.
Okay. And so should this move forward, I highly suggest that you have those numbers.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, council members. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. We've had a lot of discussions about this project, and I do have follow-ups from the meeting that we had, the special meeting that we had. I did ask the Department of Planning and Permitting about buffer because I did make a comment about how because of the length and width of the property, it feels like a buffer parcel to me, right? Or parcels to me. And with that, I just wanted to ask, with it being close to Kamehameha Highway and I guess other roads that intersect, or not intersect, excuse me, parallel it, I was wondering what type of physical buffers will you have between the homes on the top side here, as well as the mainly the homes. Will it be more rock walls or just the foliage? Would you be able to explain that?
To my understanding, it would be a combination of the setbacks themselves and landscaping would provide the primary. I'm sorry, can you hear me better now? I apologize. To my understanding, they would use a combination of the setbacks and landscaping to buffer the residences and the adjacent parcels.
And how much feet of buffer between the major arteries are you planning to, or would they be planning to implement?
Well, they would certainly meet all requirements, but I have to say that I think that that's still being worked out. The design shown here is entirely conceptual and
Okay, no, I definitely understand that what we're doing right now is really just the first step before design, actual full designs, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I did have a question last time that I think I could have asked better, but we do see that we have 1 or 2 access points, and I asked Mr. Hayes before if he knew if there was a certain requirement for a certain amount of units and how many access points per unit, meaning there's this Opaiola Road as well as Kane Hall Road as the points to Kamehameha Highway, basically, and then none in between. And just looking at new communities, we have a lot of neighborhoods in our communities that just have one access point, right? Like on the west side, and then also, I'll just stick to my district and say like in the valleys, right? There's only one road in, one road out with like 500, 600 homes. And granted that this is 150 to 156 units, but I was wondering, for better safety planning and better neighborhood planning, as this is looking out to be, is there a consideration for other access points to in and out of the proposed plan here?
well, I know that as the plans are finalized, they will be working with like the fire department, fire prevention bureaus, to make sure that there's adequate fire access. There's, due to the constraints on the site, there's limited options in terms of ingress and egress. They do have 2, as you noted. In terms of emergency, there may be some other options, but I think that probably the best answer that I can give you now is that they will make sure that those 2 points of ingress and egress meet all needs for emergency access so that people can, rapidly access or exit the site as needed.
Okay, and understanding we'll be seeing this maybe in the future, and we'll discuss that further. But I did just want to bring that up. I do have a question as it relates to the zoning itself and what and how the possible project plan will be able to mitigate the impacts of all on-site parking. You said 1 to 100 feet or per 100 feet possibly. Would you be able to clarify that?
I believe that the requirement is 1 per 1,000 square feet, yes.
And with that in mind, that's still a lot of vehicles, right? And with that, in the current zoning, what would then be allowed on site? Will it just be all individual stalls? Will there be an ability for a parking, I don't know, parking structure or something that would just be able to maintain that while including all that's planned in the conceptual plan?
Well, to my understanding, the current concept calls for individual parking spaces and not a parking structure. I suppose it could be a covered, people put PV and other type of awnings over parking, but it's not a true parking structure, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, and that is all covered under, that is all capable in the zoning that you're applying for?
Not in the current zoning, but in the zoning that.
in the zoning that is being applied.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Okimoto first, and then Tupola.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Thank you for presenting before us. I was not able to make the last meeting in the evening, so if some of my questions were already answered, I appreciate you answering them in advance. There are lots of testimonies that has been mentioned about the traffic and congestion. So I had questions similar to Councilmember Cordero. With your egress and I guess the one-way ins, I know you said you've done a traffic study, but how is this really going to impact the communities? How can we alleviate the concerns that they have based on how the congestion will be added to the current traffic that they already experience?
Well, there'll be traffic generated by construction of the project, and then there'll be traffic generated by operation of the project. And I think that the way that you manage those two things would be somewhat different. For purposes of construction, of course, you would use phasing, timing of deliveries, carpooling of workers, and things like that. But the traffic study will dial in more to the sort of operational phase of the project. And so how exactly the volumes of traffic that are anticipated and the ways in which you might accommodate them will be outcomes of that study. And so I don't know that I can speak to it in greater detail than that right now, but I do know that that's sort of an integral part of the process moving forward.
Thank you, and I think that's really important if this moves forward to make sure that we address the community's
Absolutely.
concerns.
I mean, anytime you're introducing that many vehicles to a site, you would want to have a
That
very
seems to
clear
have been
idea.
one of their main concerns.
Agreed.
I had another question based on the last page where you had the breakdown of the application of affordable housing rules. And that's one thing that I think, at least myself, I think my colleagues and I get criticized a lot for. We approve projects that are termed affordable housing, and then the community comes back and with the note that it's not affordable. So I noticed that only 10% of the units, 16 out of the 156 or so, are pegged affordable. And I think that was maybe my one pause. Is there a way that that can be adjusted? What I would hate is we approve projects and then later on we realize, or we have to explain to our communities that it's not really affordable when only 10 units or 16 units, 10% of the units are actually considered in the affordable housing. And even that, it seems, some people might say that this is even still a bit steep, but I understand that you have it in the 80% AMI.
Yeah, well, I think that there is latitude. As the presentation stated, there will be an affordable housing agreement that is subject to negotiation with the city, so those terms can be worked out. But in general, I think that the project is envisioned as sort of a gap housing or workforce housing, and not solely as an affordable housing development. And we're trying to take pains to present it that way.
And but again, if it's the gap housing, if you put the affordable rental for 80 and 120% AMI, that's only 30%. So 70% would be at market value. But you're still considering this as gap housing.
Well, it will certainly supply a quantity of gap housing where none now exists, yes.
And we understand that you guys the numbers have to work out. So I understand that. But I really want to urge or encourage those who come before us because we get put in the situation where we're approving projects and then the critique to us is you guys approve this, it's actually not affordable, and there's not many units that could be used as gap housing or affordable housing.
We acknowledge that is an issue in the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Tupola?
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, thank you for being here. I guess to Councilmember Okimoto's point, in my district, because I have just houses booming everywhere on the west side, the majority of money is spent on infrastructure. It says here you guys are going to be spending some money on the waste treatment, section of it. So how is all the rest of the infrastructure in that area? How is the foundation? How are your electric lines? Could you just in general describe to me how easy or hard it is going to be for you to hook up to all of that?
Well, in general, although the site itself is unimproved, it's directly adjacent to commercial and residential development. So most of the types of things like sewer, electrical, water are in adjacent areas and are relatively easy to
nearby,
access.
Easy to connect up.
That's how I would characterize it, yes, ma'am.
In the one diagram that you have with conceptual project plan, the one that Chair was referring to and asking about how much commercial section, just for my own reference, from Kamehameha Highway to Opaiula, how long is that inlet? How many feet? I just want to know how far in it is from the highway. That road on the left side is 10 feet, 100 feet?
35 feet wide is the estimate. 35 feet wide is the estimate.
Yeah, not the width. How far in is someone driving from Kamehameha Highway into Opaiula Road?
Oh.
It's a mile, half a mile?
100, 120 yards.
Oh, so it's nearby then.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the one for Cane Hall Road, that's on the right side of it. They'll be able to access it, but that won't be an in and out, correct?
I think that that is still open to discussion because the traffic study will make recommendations about the way to best address, ingress and egress to the site. And
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Waters, any questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you.
Thank you all.
We're going to proceed with in-person testimony in the chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, we have a few standing by.
When I call your name, please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name. Please include your remarks promptly when you hear the buzz of the timer. Natalie McKinney?
Aloha Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, Council Members Cordero, Okimoto, and Topola. Mahalo for the opportunity to speak to you today in opposition of Bill 37. My name is Natalie Mihana McKinney. I'm a lifelong resident of Haleiwa, a proud graduate of Waialua High School, as well as an alumni of the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Kokua Hawaii Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2003 by Kim and Jack Johnson that support environmental education in Hawaii schools and communities. I've worked at Kokua Hawaii Foundation for 15 years. In 2010, a developer bought 7 acres of agricultural land in Haleiwa. The land sits on Achu Lane, just off Kamehameha Highway, Makai of the North Shore Marketplace. It's less than a quarter of a mile from the Haleiwa Backyards LCC proposed project. This developer intended to build 35 homes on that 7 acres. In 2017, his rezoning request from agriculture to urban was brought to Honolulu City Council members and voted on. And the community opposition in 2017 pales in comparison to the community opposition today to the current request by this new developer in 2025 to build a 156-unit apartment complex and 30,000 square feet of retail space. In 2017, the developer in public testimony said his land was unfit for farming and that a study of the soil found it had too much clay. Haleiwa resident Malia Evans disagreed. Evans, an anthropologist who studies traditional land use in Hawaii, said the land is ideal for farming kalo. The U.S. Department of Agriculture online soil survey classified this land and surrounding properties as prime farmland if irrigated. Opposition to the 2017 bills stated that it would set a dangerous precedent.
Natalie, you're going to have to wrap up.
Sure. So in 2019, Kokua Hawaii Foundation purchased these 7 acres on Achu Lane. Since 2020, over 7,000 volunteers have spent 17,000 volunteer hours clearing, restoring, and maintaining these 7 acres that make up the Kokua Learning Farm, which is used for agricultural use. Since 2023, over 40,000 pounds of produce have been harvested from the Kokua Learning Farm, including taro. That's a quarter mile from the Haleiwa Backyards project that they're proposing this zoning change from ag to urban. Kokua Hawaii Foundation's efforts are proof that land deemed unfit for farming by developers is aina, or land that feeds, and a perfect example of agricultural land being properly used. I welcome you to come and visit the Kokua Learning Farm and see for yourself. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? If not, we're going to move on to Raquel Achu.
Aloha Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, and committee members. Raquel Achu of Wailua Moku. I understand what all the plans and the data reflect on paper, of which much are based on info over 10 years old. But the people of the Wailua Moku live it every single day. The day after the last zoning committee meeting, which we're very appreciative for, I left my property to go to the store for 1 loaf of bread. The distance is 1.5 miles. It should have taken me 5 minutes to get there. I arrived home 1 hour and 20 minutes later. for one loaf of bread, I was in gridlock on a Wednesday at 11 a.m. I respectfully oppose Bill 47 and ask that this amendment be denied, but at the very least, await the updated North Shore Sustainables Communities Plan to be completed or adopted so our current environment can be considered. When this project was introduced, the plan was already about maybe 8 years old, and we are now 14 years. I believe the changes and the considerations in that plan need to be seen. As far as housing, we are currently meeting with another developer for several years now to rebirth the Mill Camp project, which already had 350 plus homes, and restoring that. So those will be affordable rentals as well. We've not taken a position in the community yet, but that is something that's in process. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? If not, the next testifier is Mark Anthony Clemente.
Hello, Kakahiaka Chair, Vice Chair, members. Mark Anthony Clemente on behalf of the Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters. Don't want to take up too much of your time. We stand on our written testimony in support of this bill. Appreciate the findings in the bill as well as the conditions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Members, any questions? If not, Zaz Dahlin.
Aloha mai kako, I'm Zaz. I would like to start off by saying this is a beautiful piece of ag land that would be great for a community garden. I strongly oppose rezoning at restricted ag land and general preservation to business commercial mixed use for corporate greed and commercial profit. For 10 years, the landowner, Andy Anderson, let this ag land sit vacant so he could capitalize on rezoning it to business when it could have been farmed to feed the community. Andy Anderson's past projects have impacted our community negatively. His two-story restaurant, Haleiwa Beach House, faced temporary closure due to expanding the seating capacity without a proper wastewater system. To date, the top story is still closed. He cut corners to see this project through and for months allowed sewage to seep into Honolulu Bay and the Queen's Fish Pond Local Ea, which is Haleiwa's only fish pond that the community still gathers from. Even with an EIS, think about the negative impacts from this on our water source and waterways. For years now, we've seen developers come in with big promises and end up delivering short. We watch them destroy the waterways, backfill them, slam concrete pillars through punavais, disturb iwi kapuna, but the EIS always says the proposed project would never do such things. For example, our Ate Collective is constructing a luxury residential community up Turtle Bay. They found numerous iwi kapuna and artifacts, yet construction still continues regardless of community concerns. The Laniakea parking lot road diversion being constructed at Kukai Ohiki has found iwi kapuna, but continues to expand, dig, and drilled concrete slabs into the riverbeds of Kawailoa. This project, Haleiwa Backyards, is no different, especially when there is very little trust in a system that is meant to protect ag land, our aina, and resources. Why should we believe today that runoff pollutants from this project will not end up in our waterways, end up in our punavai, marshland, and rivers that surround Haleiwa town from the only stoplight to oceanfront? The developer's proposal of adding 30,000 square foot of retail stores, 500 plus parking stalls, and multiple 3-story tall buildings in an already congested one road in, one road out of Haleiwa town that's a mile and a half. Meanwhile, promoting that rentals will be affordable and will keep the country is a joke. What is affordable? Example, let's say you work at one of these proposed retail shops. Minimum wage is $15 an hour. You work 8 hours, that's $120 before taxes. So let's say your take home is $80 for that day. You work 5 days a week, that's $400. In 1 month, your net is $1,600, that's before bills, gas, electric, water, sewer, rent. 2-bedroom rental apartments for this project are affordable at $2,500, but if you split the rent, that's $1,250, which leaves you $350 for the remainder of the month to cover your expenses. Project Haleiwa Backyards was never intended to support local, only the developer and anyone who has their hands in the pocket. Ag land is meant for food production. Farming is the future when we live on
If you could wrap up, please.
You got it. Farming is the future when we live on an island that's dependent on 90% of imports. Soil is the most valuable resource on the planet, In an era of progression, the mentality that money is more important than soil has got to change. The state is constantly inviting big money investors to buy here. We are building structures faster than land is being generated in our islands. From plats to people, we are displacing the natives. Value the environment, value the people. We live on an island with now limited resources. We must protect what's left for future generations. You all have a big decision to make. You have a choice to keep the country or support developers and outside money occupying Hawaii, which continues to displace locals. Your decision today will make an impact for a lifetime. Please be the voice for the land, support the people in opposition of rezoning ag land to urban. Mahalo for your time.
Thank you so much. Members, any question? Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name.
Good morning. My name is Denise Antolini. Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, and members of the committee. I'm a North Shore resident. I live in Pupukea. I'm also a member of the North Shore Neighborhood Board. First, I want to thank the chair for having that special meeting last week. 7 neighborhood board members showed up, either in person or online. It was extraordinary, the opportunity you gave us. I want to talk quickly about community sentiment, about some legal issues, and about planning and looking forward. Community sentiment. The people who live in this area deeply and vehemently oppose this project. Today, as of just a few minutes ago, 318 testimonies in opposition. Nobody we know supports this project. Those are the people who will be impacted and have to live with the consequences. The few who support it are coming from either the developer, the industry perspective, or don't live in the area. So when the developer says this is for Haleiwa, we think you should listen to the residents of Haleiwa. Second, Chamber of Commerce for the North Shore also opposes the project, submitted extensive testimony. So you have the Neighborhood Board, the Chamber of Commerce, and today 380 people in opposition. If I could continue for just a minute. Thank you, Chair. Second, on the legal issue, the criteria for granting a land use boundary change, it is discretionary. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into kind of justifying it on the basis of affordable housing. First of all, as you see, and I think the questions have drilled down, there's very little affordable housing, even if it's labeled that in this project. It's just enough to make it shiny, but it's not real. And the promises, as council members have said, often don't show up to be real in our community. We have supported other affordable housing, the Milk Camp project that was mentioned in Wailua, so we're not opposed, we support it, but this is the wrong location and it really is smoke and mirrors. So it is a discretionary decision on your part. It is not a ministerial permit. And in fact, you need a 2/3 vote in full council to approve this. That's how important it is in the land use law to make a change from ag to urban. Planning, the planning documents, apologies, I don't know about the mic today. The planning documents, the EA, the traffic analysis, sustainable communities plan are all over 10 years old. Those documents should have been updated in our view before today's decision. Don't kick the can down the road. Last, use ag for ag. I think you heard compelling testimony, and I hope you get a chance to read the 318 testimonies. Ag is viable in Haleiwa. It is a rural town where ag is thriving in many areas. And the fact that this developer bought it after the bypass segmented this parcel and has not used it for ag should not impose those negative impacts on our community. Mahalo.
Thank you. Members? Any questions for the testifier? Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, we have one standing by.
When I call your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number, please follow the prompts to unmute and begin by stating your name for the record. And when the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. The first testifier is Kalani Nozaki.
Chair, testifier has not logged on.
Not logged on. Okay, the next testifier is Larry McElhaney. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Chair. Can you folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and committee members. I would first like to thank you folks for all the hours and hours that you folks meet and try and sort out these challenging issues. It must be extremely difficult to separate fact from fiction. It is, I know, for me. I would like to echo the testimonies that have come in so far. What is there, 311 so far? I am in total agreement with the testifiers. I would like to highlight a couple of the issues that they bring up. This proposal makes a mockery of the underlying and fundamental spirit of the North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan. The intent of that plan and the vast majority of the residents is to keep this area rural, and to call an urban development rural is outrageous. The other concern that I have is that, you know, I consider the council and DPP to be benevolent organizations, kind and you know, good intent. But the problem is you will occasionally come across an unscrupulous developer who will take advantage of your kindness. And I can't think of a better example of a track record that's well publicized and well documented than this developer's track record. I think you folks need to take a good look at that. That's kind of the result of giving the developer the benefit of the doubt over and over again. Please do not give this developer the benefit of the doubt. Take a close look at the track record, listen to the community, and uphold the spirit of the Sustainable Communities Plan. Let's keep this area rural as intended. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else standing by remotely who would like to testify on this item? Please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on your phone to indicate your desire to speak.
Chair, we have 2 numbers standing by.
The first last 3 digits is 578. 578. Could you please identify yourself?
Chair, testifier logged off.
Okay, the next telephone number, the last 3 digits is 834. 834. Okay, is there anyone else who's going to testify on this item? Please put up the hand button, the hand feature. If not, we are going to move on. For the administration.
Aloha. Sorry. Hi, aloha. Sorry, I'm on the phone and would like to testify if possible.
I'm sorry, I don't see you. Where are you? What? Can you identify yourself?
Aloha nui kako. My name is Kawai Bloom. I'm on the telephone.
Okay, you were 834. Yeah, 834. I had called you. Okay, please proceed.
Sorry. Aloha. Mahalo for having us testify. This is my 3rd time testifying. And I mean, just basically reiterating what everyone said, I am respectfully opposing Bill 37. As a resident of Haleiwa and a lifelong resident of, Ko'olauloa and Waialua Moku, I feel insulted when people keep saying that the agricultural land is an apple for agriculture. Just like Uncle Leaf said last meeting, any land can be used for agriculture. I mean, I see ulu trees fruiting in the middle of Ala Moana Mall, so I feel like these 7.29 acres of land would be perfect for agriculture, and Hawaii is in a crisis where we really need agriculture, and I love going to local farmers and buying produce. I wanted to also reiterate the traffic congestion. Living in Haleiwa, we moved from Kahuku to Haleiwa because of traffic. And with these 150 plus condos, it's just going to bring more traffic into Haleiwa town. And if you are from Haleiwa, from the North Shore, if you frequent here often, you know we deal with traffic. So I want to know, like, who's doing the traffic studies? Because from when I was a little girl into an adult now, I'm, you know, nearing 40, it's obvious to see that traffic has changed drastically. So I would like to know who's doing the traffic study and how long, you know, is that going to take? Because it's obvious to North Shore residents that traffic is unbearable. And I feel like, you know, no one listens to us year after year after year. It took me 45 minutes to get home from Waimea Bay to take my children swimming back to Haleiwa town because of road construction, you know, and we have to go places, and it totally pushes us back when we don't know about it.
I'm going to have
it's
to
very,
ask
very
you to
frustrating.
summarize, please, and conclude your remarks.
Thank you so much. I just respectfully oppose this bill, and I think it could be used for agriculture. And I hate to keep seeing agricultural land rezoned to urban. Mahalo nui for this opportunity.
And for the record, could you please state your name? Again, I don't think we heard your name. Can you state your name for the record?
My name is Kawai Bloom.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry. Yeah, I heard the Bloom. I didn't hear the first name. Kawai, I wanted to let you know that in this, we have heard the concerns about the traffic impact study, and so should this measure move forward, there will be a requirement that an updated traffic study be completed prior to the submittal of a zoning change application. So thank you very much. We're going to move now to the administration. For the Department of Planning and Permitting, we have the Director, Don Takeuchi-Apuna.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Committee on Zoning and Planning. On behalf of Director Apuna, my name is Franz Krantz. I'm the Chief of the Community Planning Branch within DPP. We remain in support of the State Land Use District Boundary Amendment for its adherence to the state, county, and community plans that are currently adopted.
Members, are there any questions for the department? Councilmember Tupola? Councilmember Cordero? Councilmember Okimoto? Vice Chair Waters? Do you have any questions for the department? And are there any questions or discussion before I make my recommendation? Councilmember Tupola?
Sorry, just one follow-up. Just for clarity, I'm looking at this for the first time, so I'm trying to wrap my head around everything. As a new member of zoning, I just wanted to ask, you guys are in support because it's under what ordinance or under what law is it following? Can you say it one more time?
Certainly. As you know, as was mentioned at the outset of the summary for this proposal, there are certain standards and criteria that the council uses in regard and consideration of the State Land Use District Boundary Amendment. One of those, and probably more pertinent to us, is the relevancy to the state and Oahu General Plan. And so on that basis, we find that it meets those standards. But if you go beyond that to this Sustainable Communities Plan, which, true, it was done in 2011, with regard to that, it talks about the importance of infill housing. And if I might just use this, the community growth boundary is a tool to decide where urban or development should go and where agriculture, open space should be preserved. And in section 3.2.1, it says, except for limited infill areas contiguous to Haleiwa and Waialua towns and that are designated for future residential. And to follow up on that, again, is the concentrating new development in existing areas close to infrastructure, which has been mentioned already. makai of the Haleiwa Bypass Road. So this particular parcel was contemplated in the 2011 Sustainable Communities Plan. This project has been in the works for over a decade. So it came on the heels of the adoption of the 2011 plan back at that time.
Thank you for the clarity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your question. And Councilmember Tupola, you need to know at the last hearing, I did ask about time frame on when the Sustainable Communities Plan will be updated. It's in draft form. It will likely be circulated the ending of the year, I understand. They have to go to the Planning Commission, then the Council. And so I would just guesstimate that the earliest would probably be the middle of next year. Is that correct, DPP?
Yes, we have a very good administrative draft at this point for our internal review, and we still need to go through that and then get it out to the community, to the Planning Commission. I would expect by a recommendation from the Planning Commission in early 2026, if all goes according to that schedule.
Okay, members, if there's no other discussion, I'm going to make my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to reiterate that this state land use district boundary amendment is the first step in a long approval process that would need to occur before the project could be developed should this measure move forward. Many of the project details have not been finalized and may be subject to change when the applicant applies for zoning change approval. While there has been considerable community opposition to this boundary amendment, the applicant has satisfied all of the requirements for a boundary amendment. Having said that, I urge all of the members to vote their conscience based on all of the information received. The chair recommends that Bill 37, 2025 be amended to the hand-carried CD1 OCS 2025-0534. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the bill has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 37, 2025 CD1 be reported out for second reading and the scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations?
Reservations, no, my reservations, Chair. Thank you.
Anyone else? Noting the reservations of Councilmember Okimoto. The recommendation is so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 5, informational briefing. Short-term rental update by the Department of Planning and Permitting, including enforcement efforts involving rentals of less than 30 days versus less than 90 days. Hosting platform compliance with the registration and reporting requirements of ROH Chapter 21, Article 2A, and the Department Short-Term Rental Awareness Campaign to identify legal versus illegal short-term rentals. The Department of Planning and Permitting would provide a brief presentation. For your information, the presentations are available online as the Departmental Communication 486-2025 and the Departmental Communication 487-2025. Before I call up the administration, however, because I know that there have been a lot of testifiers who have been waiting, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, we have a few standing by.
The first in the audience is Edward Jones.
Aloha, Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, Director. My name is Ed Jones. I am from Kalama Valley. I'm speaking today on my own behalf. Out of the discussion, I would like to see a bill introduced in August full council that would allow renting of residential property that is in the same zoning lot as the owner, where the owner has their primary domicile on that lot. So I'm talking about a small group of people. They would be, rentals would be, examples of the rentals would be duplex, single family, rooms. The mayor is on board with that. He kindly held a dozen town halls. So the comments, his comments on the subject matter are contained in the COSTRO testimony. And I definitely would like to, from the discussion, understand what the concerns would be for this. The mayor does refer to this as a small group of people, so it's a small carve out. But it would definitely help Kupuna and maintain a high cost of living as they try to avoid being priced out of paradise.
Sir, if you could wrap up, please.
Yes, Chair. Vice Chair, I appreciate you emceeing the meeting. Town Hall last night, you put in some pretty long days, and actually seeking me out to begin this discussion, and I would like to continue that as you represent me in District 4. Mahalo for your consideration with this.
Thank you. Members, any questions? If not, we're going to move on to Margaret Allrand.
Aloha kakahiaka kako. Thank you, Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, and members of the committee for sitting here and listening to us all and helping the future of our island. Can you hear me? Okay. Along with Ed Jones, I represent COSTRO, which stands for Kiaʻāina Occupied Short-Term Rentals Oahu. We're a very small group of hosts who short-term rent. We have a feature that combs the listings on VRBO and Airbnb that looks for the minimum stay in the bowels of the listing. I did not realize this was a factor, and I had my minimum at 7 days. Most visitors to the island stay for 10 days. That's the average. And I got a notice of violation. The bill controlling that lists the period as 7 days to cure. I was given 5. I had a major trip to the mainland coming up in 3. So I had to hustle. I complied with that regulation, and it has reduced my income by 75%, which is harmful because otherwise I'm living on my Social Security check, which isn't much. So this is an important thing for people, kupuna mostly. I'm 82, and I don't know whether I could get a third job. But anyway, we need the income or we're going to be priced out of paradise. I am anticipating when I run out of savings to put my house, which has been beloved of 5 generations of my family and which has been in the family for 52 years, to put it on the market regretfully. I don't know where I'll go to die, but I'll go somewhere. Anyway.
Okay, you're going to have to wrap up your testimony.
All right, we have a bill on Mike Formby's desk. I drafted it, which would cover this little segment of the community, and it harks back to section 521.22, which says a rental agreement may be for any time period. So 30 days is wonderful for a lot of people. Less than that is ideal for us.
Thank you for your testimony. I just want to make clear, unless you're a non-conforming use, the minimum requirement is 90 days, not 30 days.
Really?
Yes.
Did not know
and
that.
We have had several years of discussions here, so I just highly recommend that if you are unaware of what the laws are, you might want to contact your council member. Who is your council member?
Waters.
Okay, so contact their staff. The Department of Planning and Permitting actually has a website for that. Of course, alternative ways to make income would be long-term rentals.
That does not cover my cost of repairs and maintaining the place.
Okay, I understand that, but we've had several years of debate on this issue, and the public sentiment is that they would like to have stricter controls over the existence of short-term rentals in our residential communities. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to Representative Lisa Martin, who from Kailua, who is my colleague.
Good morning, Chair and Council members. My name is Lisa Martin, and I represent Kailua and Waimanalo in the State House. And first, I'm sorry that I missed the previous part of your agenda, but I appreciate you moving forward the Kaiwa Ridge Trail improvements. And there's still a lot of concerns to address, but this is a first step. So I really appreciate that. On this issue, I know it's been a struggle, and I really appreciate that the City Council has moved to really take control of short-term rentals. The short-term rental industry did have a win in court, which restricted the ability of the city and kind of grandfathered in people who were doing a 30-day rental previously. We in the state last year, Act 17, gave you folks the ability to overcome that restriction by the court. And that's something that I'm sure you've been watching on Maui. They are taking advantage of that you folks can regulate the time, place, manner, and duration of uses of land. And I'm not going to bring up again all the arguments, but when we're talking about rezoning ag land for residences, I know the state and the city are both desperately trying to expand the stock of affordable housing. We have housing out there. It's in our communities, it's already built, and it's not being used to live in, it's being used for hotels. So I just really urge you folks, I appreciate that you're having this info briefing so we can all learn more about what's going on right now. And I really urge you to take advantage of the full powers that you have. Mahalo.
Thank you, Representative. Members, any questions with regard to what happened at the state legislature relating to short-term rentals? Okay, thank you so much. The next testifier is Keikoa McClellan. Thank you for being patient.
My pleasure, Chair. Aloha, Chair, Committee Vice Chair, Council Chair, honorable members of the committee. Keikoa McClellan on behalf of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. I had hoped to hear an update from the director before providing comments, but I will be brief. First and foremost, this council has done yeoman's work in putting great laws on the books. We don't need to revisit and relitigate the short-term rental issue. We need to support and encourage the department to enforce the laws that we have. And so questions that I would love to hear today answered from our previous hearing that the committee chair held on short-term rentals would relate to whether the fines that were applied to operatives of illegal short-term rentals were also applied to the platforms whom are held accountable. I think the second thing that we would like to hear is what plans we have to sort of shorten the protest period. So as we heard a couple months ago, $30 million in fines in 2024, $1 million collected because of the appeal period. And we think we should be resourcing DPP and the appeals process. I will stop now, Chair.
Actually, I know you have a lot of experience. Members, do we have any questions for Mr. McClellan? Councilmember Tupola.
Yes,
could you
Council Vice
conclude
Chair.
your comments, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I? Okay. So we think that resourcing the department as it relates to how we're dealing with shortening the appeals process would be very helpful. the representative from Kailua made a really strong point regarding the ruling on the 30-day piece. So the third question would be how we as a city are enforcing non-compliance with 90-day or less operators. So Judge Watson's ruling did not say that you could rent a home in Honolulu for 30 days. That is not what it said. It said if you were operating a short-term rental prior to the Honolulu City Council of submitting this beautiful bill to the mayor, 22-7 that was signed in 2022, and you were paying your GET and TAT, then you could continue to operate in non-compliance with the city's new rules. But if you were not doing all of those things, you could not then go and list. So that was a question that we had in the previous hearing. We'd love to see what the department is doing there. And I think the last piece would be tools, fighting fire with fire. And here we know that the platforms have tremendous technology at their disposal. And they use that to sort of circumvent our department's good efforts, little things like being able to choose when you list. So if our enforcement officers are coming in at 7:35 in the morning and the listing is set to turn off at 7:30 a.m., they won't see that when they're looking to enforce. So we're really hopeful to hear some of the progress the department has made. I would respectfully disagree with the previous testifier that what we need to do is create another carve-out. To Representative Martin's point, on the island of Maui, the county of Maui is contemplating a bill based on SB 2919, the law that we instituted last year to resource your council with the authority to phase out short-term rentals altogether. Should you contemplate future legislation, we think that it should reflect something along the lines of Bill 9 on the County of Maui. I strongly recommend you check socials on the vehement testimony that is going back and forth there. Clearly, the general sentiment is that our housing initiatives throughout the Kiaʻāina are not going to be solved if we don't fully enforce the rules that we have already on the books in short-term rentals, and loosening those may not be in our best interest. So happy to answer any questions about what's going on with short-term rental enforcement, the industry's perspective, the work that we've done now for 10 years here in Honolulu, supporting the work that you folks do.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, Council Chair.
I did have a question regarding Judge Watson's ruling.
Sure.
And basically saying that if you were operating a short-term rental prior to the city council's legislation, that you're in a sense grandfathered in. But did that also apply to the requirement that people had to register as short-term rental?
Excellent question. You must still register. So just because you were operating prior, it doesn't mean that you don't have to register. So all of the other components of 22-7 remain in full effect, and the council does maintain the authority, of course with the mayor's signature, to phase out short-term rental uses. I think that was the key component of Act 17 of 2024. It allows you to, as a city, determine whether or not a short-term rental use is good or bad, and then phase it out. And I think the reason that all four counties, technically we have 5 counties in Hawaii, right, if you're counting a little place on Molokai where Father Damien spent a lot of time. But the reason that all 4 counties have spent so much energy on short-term rental enforcement is because it is taking housing away from our people. And so in the last 10 years, we've, in all four counties, changed the laws 8 times, twice worked on vetoes at the state legislature that would have deemed licensed short-term rentals, and now once changed the law to enable counties to phase out short-term rentals because they continue to increase. So follow me on this, members. 10 years, 8 laws, all 4 counties. I pulled revenue numbers for Airbnb just to see how effective we've been in reducing the impacts of short-term rentals. So if you just look at the bottom line numbers, this is only Airbnb, only active supply, and only actual revenues. So we passed a law in 2018 In 2019, revenues in 2021 just on Airbnb in Honolulu were $181 million. In 2022, we passed another law. Revenues only on Airbnb were $266 million. In 2023, they were $293 million. And in 2024, they were $328 million. If you're doing some quick math, it means that your 3% of TAT here at the city should have been roughly $10 million, technically 9.8. And you did not collect that much from Airbnb. Ergo, we are heavily reliant on DPP and the work that they're going to do going forward to enforce the laws on the books and on budget to go and collect these dollars.
Do you have an idea?
Delinquent TAT. And we think that part of that starts with DPP's enforcement of holding accountable for the fees that they are due. The way that the laws...
I know there was days of testimony on both sides.
It's going to come out of committee and go to the full council to vote.
So have they voted in committee yet?
I was preparing for you, Chair, so I missed that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious because I've been following it, but last couple of days have been quite busy for us. So.
Yeah, I'll give you some quick thoughts on that. There are resort-like properties, purpose-built properties as resorts that are on the Minatoya list, and they will be phased out should this bill move forward. And those hotel owners and operators, and I represent AHLA and HHA, they will need to go through the process of seeking proper zoning for their operations. That is something that is being done in full sunshine, right? Where you have an industry like the Hawaii's hotel and lodging industry that are fighting for housing for our people. Let me give you another colloquial example. The relationship between hotel owners and operators and their employees is special. It's sometimes tense, but it's important. And employees organize and advocate in our hotel industry for wages and for living standards that allow them to do what they do best for their guests and also take care of their families. And, you know, the fact that starting wages in a hotel these days loom around $31 an hour with full health care, with full benefits, with a crew lunch, is a testament to the regenerative model of tourism that's happening in our hotels. The problem with over-tourism is happening at illegal short-term rentals. And the numbers that we just shared, Chair, clearly point to the reality that short-term rentals continue to do quite well for themselves while we struggle to meet basic needs.
No, thank you. Appreciate your advocacy, but looking forward to hearing from DPP.
As are we. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name. Seeing no other testifiers, proceeding with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have a couple standing by.
Okay, the first person is Kelly Lee. Is Kelly Lee online? Please proceed, Kelly.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Zoning Committee. My name is Kelly Lee, President of OSTRA. We stand by our written testimony, which details our unwavering support for the preservation of midterm housing on Oahu. This is a critical housing segment entirely separate from vacation rentals. We believe a more in-depth study into this housing segment should be pursued to protect the essential midterm housing needs for Oahu's residents. And to answer Vice Chair's question to Keikoa on Maui's vote, that is set for July 2nd. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for Kelly? If not, we're going to move on. I understand that several people are not online, but I'm going to call your names anyway to make sure. Joe Eads, E-A-D-S. Joe, is Joe online?
Testifier has not logged on.
Okay, Jeffrey Vesky.
Testifier has not logged on.
Al Furley.
Not logged on.
Ermina Fernandez.
Not logged on.
Virginia Dutton. Virginia, I see you there. You'd like to unmute? Please
There I
proceed.
am. Okay. Hi. My name's Virginia Dutton. I live in Kailua. I have a 30-day rental in Kailua also. And as a member of the Kailua community, I have supported the efforts to really rein in illegal short-term rentals because they are often disruptive into the neighborhood. But like Kelly, who is our president of OSTRA, I would ask you to put a pause on implementing any kind of the resolution, anything, and do a study of what the true economic impact of going from allowing a 30-day rental to a 90-day rental. As earlier testimonies have submitted, I pay housekeepers in probably $50 an hour so that they can have a living wage and take care of their family. The profits from my legal 30-day, I pay my taxes, including OT, AT. Those profits stay and are reinvested on Oahu. I think it's important that we have this midterm rental. And I just want to say that our renters have often been people like from the Marco Polo fire. We've had federal law enforcement agents, and they wouldn't be staying in a hotel probably, but they stay in my 30-day rental. And I feel like they're really important. I just, again, would encourage you to do a comprehensive study of this issue before you make any sort of regulations moving forward. Full support of continuing 30-day rentals. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia. You're very lucky to have a legal 30-day rental. And so we are
Fingers
actually,
crossed. Yes.
we are not actually contemplating any legislation. This hearing is about enforcement.
Well, I understand enforcement, and I support your enforcement. So thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else standing by? Oh, first of all, did anyone else have any questions for her? Is there anyone else standing by remotely who would like to testify on this item? Please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press 9 on your phone. Angela, are you testifying on short-term rentals?
Yes, Chair.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Angela Melody Young, CARES. And so, Airbnbs leads to increased economic development because middle-class families can rent out houses for money instead of juggling 2 or 3 other jobs. So, Hawaii has a special market for tourism, vacation rentals, and Airbnb because Airbnb from our generation, the millennial generation, was introduced to the market and had to compete with hotels, which is owned by international and national markets. So now when you restrict Airbnbs, the economic development within the tourism industry is being dominated by Hilton, Marriott, right? There are not many locally owned hotels. So although, the people are already staffed at those hotels, it's still, something I think the laws should take into consideration, the balancing act of introducing a new player to the scene, to the market, the Airbnb. And so what happened in Maui when Airbnb laws were restricted is when the emergency for the wildfire recovery happened, people needed housing. The laws were already restricted and people could not rent out emergency short-term rentals for survivors and children. So, and then they'd have to go back into the state law to amend it, right? So,
Angela?
and then FEMA had to, yeah. Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm excited about what was put into motion.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, is there anybody else standing by remotely to testify? If not, we're going to bring up the administration. Director Dawn Takaichi-Apuna for the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Dawn Apuna, DPP. Thank you for this opportunity to provide this info briefing on short-term rentals. Oh, sorry. So just to give you some data on enforcement, these numbers are for the past 2.5 years, providing our requests for investigations, RFIs or complaints, notices of violation, NOVs, and notices of order, NOOs. So in the last 2.5 years, in total, we have about 3,000 complaints, 2,000 NOVs, and 831 NOOs. it is important to note that some STRs can have multiple NOVs and NOOs. This next slide provides the number of short-term rental registration approvals in the last, let's see, since July of 2024. So you can see the progress we've been making in registering legal STRs within the appropriate zoned areas. And so the issue of rentals for less than 30 days versus less than 90 days, the department believes that it's best that we enforce for the 30 days or less versus 90 days, and that's based on the following. It would be a substantial administrative burden for us to enforce the 90-day rule. The court ruling that limits enforcement such that the city can only enforce Ordinance 22-7 prospectively, meaning the short-term rentals existing before that ordinance are non-conforming uses and continue as before the enactment of the ordinance. Therefore, DPP must identify the rental terms before the ordinance was enacted, for example, 45, 60, and 89-day rentals, and treat them according to their specific nonconformity. Violations are possible for rentals shorter than those previous terms. And this administrative burden would have a significant impact on DPP resources, progress in enforcement, and effectiveness. Because it requires significant staff effort and time. We currently only have 3 short-term rental investigators and 2 planners. Requires determination of the non-conforming time of rental on a case-by-case basis and diverts resources from direct enforcement of illegal short-term rentals. It would increase the backlog at the Zoning Board of Appeals, and it would shift focus of administrative tasks, rulemaking, and appeals defense. And it hampers enforcement progress. DPP has seen an increase in its RFIs, NOVs, and NOOs as previously shown, and switching to this rule would stop that momentum. We also believe that the 90-day rule is ineffective due to persistent non-compliance that remains. The 90-day rule does not solve the core issue, which is operators who evade the short-term rental law. It may deter new entrants into the short-term rental market, but won't stop the very experienced violators. Evasion tactics include posting listings only on evenings and weekends when staff are not online, using false TMKs and tax IDs, manipulating photos, or claiming ads are fraudulent. Operators ignoring the 30-day minimum are unlikely to comply with the 90-day minimum. And to get to the core of it, the majority of SDRs are shorter stays, as one of the testifiers said, maybe 10 days on average, 1 to 2 weeks, but certainly not between 30 and 90 days. Enforcement focus on less than 30 days SDRs fulfills the intent of Ordinance 22-7 to combat SDRs that are disruptive to our residential neighborhoods. The disruptive renters are more likely to act or behave recklessly because they'll be gone within a few days, whereas longer term, i.e. 30 to 90-day renters become more aware of and part of their surrounding neighborhood and be less disruptive. The issue of hosting platform compliance with registration and reporting requirements under ROH Chapter 21, Article 2A. And we've been asked if we are enforcing this requirement to have hosting platforms register. So under the Kukua Coalition stipulation and order, it specifically states that DPP will not enforce this provision without 60 days notice to the plaintiff to allow time for the plaintiff to seek injunctive relief. So that basically means, they will be ready to litigate. We believe the reporting info may be helpful, but it's not crucial based on the type of enforcements we currently are exercising. We are doing a lot of different things with the major hosting platforms to see if we can work together to get the information that we think would be effective for enforcement. We're working with Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com. And we are trying to be collaborative in this effort. And if we aren't able to, I think there are ways that we can enforce upon the hosting platforms. We also have recently, you may have seen in the news, conducted a short-term rental awareness campaign because knowledge is power. And what is the purpose of this campaign? It is to let the public know illegal STRs can negatively impact our local housing availability, disrupt residential neighborhoods, and drive up the cost of housing. Our goal is to educate the public on what to look out for when renting a short-term rental. We have tools available to the public, like eligibility and compliance maps, that can help residents and tourists identify which properties have approved short-term rental licenses or are designated as approved NUCs. We believe that the public plays an important role in identifying illegal STRs that help in our enforcement. We continue to educate the public. We are using all forms of communication to educate visitors as well as residents on how to identify illegal and legal short-term rentals. This includes Instagram posts, and if you're able to go to our DPP Instagram right now, we just posted a top 5 short-term rental scofflaw post, which basically calls out the 5 worst short-term rental, illegal short-term rental properties on the island. So we're going to continue to do that. I think that people should know who has a lot of notices of violation, and they'll be more aware that they shouldn't rent from these scofflaws. We continue to do press releases, update our website, and we have tutorial videos that will all help in educating the public. So you're well aware of the enforcement at 2154 Ali'i Street. This is our #1 out of the top 5 worst violators. You're well aware of the foreclosure proceeding that is currently happening. We have also since identified other properties with significant STR fines, and we have in draft soon to issue at least 15 liens on short-term rental properties. We have a handful of potential foreclosures that we're having CORE look at, and we're working with real property tax such that when there is a notice of violation or order, we notify the property owner and we notify RPT that there may be issues as far as real property tax and TAT. And we will work with the state DOE tax as well so that we can let them know that there might be people that aren't appropriately paying their taxes based on their use, their short-term rental use. And with that, That is the end of my presentation on short-term rentals, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Members, questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Aloha, Chair. Thanks for being here. And thank you, Chair, for iterating that this is just an info briefing. We're not taking a vote today. So thank you for everyone for tuning in, because this is important. Not only was the bill itself kind of going through iterations, but then you recall, Director, we did the cleanup bill because some of the registration stuff was confusing. And so we made it easier so that people could readily register. And then I waited for Bill 64 because I needed the maps fixed. So I'm actually at the point in my community where now we're just educating. I'm meeting with Colina next week to like even out some of the discrepancies within the houses. Also, our HOA rules were written incorrectly, so they couldn't even register because the HOA prohibited them. So we had to change those so that they could comply with the law. So I'm just hoping that if we ever do change anything, we let this simmer, because we're actually like getting it down in my community now. So thank you for all your help, because we needed all those changes. You know, I have that area, I have Ho'akale, I have Makaha. So in all the areas that I'm working in, we're paying close attention to what your department is doing so we can track alongside it. I wanted to point out on the administrative burden of enforcing the 90-day rule. On your fourth bullet point on the right side, it says increases the Zoning Board of Appeals backlog. I met with one of the Zoning Board of Appeals members, and she said that I think it's out like 3 years, every agenda has only STRs on it. And they have other items that I think they should attend to. So my question is, should we find a way to maybe have 3 or 4 main categorical fines or settlements that you do and then start to group it together for the appeals? I think this is very hard for the Board of Zoning Appeals to only have these. Many of them are not familiar with the current laws. Many of them are not experts in STRs. So how can we alleviate that backlog so they can handle other concerns besides this? Go ahead.
Thank you. That's very much a concern for the department. I think one thing we are looking at is a potential amnesty program where if it's a first-time violator, that they may be able to settle for a lesser amount and just get out of the appeals process. And that would reduce, it's kind of like a warning, don't do it again, but let's not wait in line and clog up the appeals. But yes, we're open to a lot of suggestions about how we can just bring it down. It is just a big spike because of the evolution that you're talking about of the legislation, the enforcement. So I think it's natural. I think Kauai went through the same thing, but it is, something that we're trying to take care of as far as the backlog there.
Yeah, thank you so much, because I feel bad. These guys are volunteers. They're spending hours of their time answering very similar cases. So let's try, I'll work with you on that if you need any help. I had a question about, if I could, there's not a page number. The one that says the DPP hiring stats.
Yeah, sorry, that will be in the second presentation.
Oh, so not now, okay. Yeah. I have questions for the next presentation. Those are my questions for now for this. But I do believe that in the meeting coming up, like I'll be attending and helping where I can so that each of my, what would you call it, resort areas can comply with the law. So thank you, Director, for helping them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions for the Director? I have a few. Just starting from the beginning of your presentation, short-term rentals, the RFIs, NOVs, and NOs. So these are complaints, notice of violations, and notice of orders. So clearly, the number of complaints, violations, and orders has gone down since you've made this a priority. So kudos to you and your department. I think it does reflect how active DPP is. So let's keep up the good work. Next, I wanted to ask you about STR approvals. This is the short-term rental registration. Looks like 1,404 units have been approved and there's 14 pending. There's a lot of talk about what was legal and what's not legal, who was grandfathered in way back from 1989. The 1,404 number, what percentage of the grandfathered in and the legal STRs represent?
So if you're referring to like the nooks,
Yes.
you know, so that would not include the nooks. The nooks are outside of that, and it's less than 800 right now.
Okay, why don't we require the nooks to register?
They're required to renew annually, I believe. So they do that, but it's a separate process versus the new STRs under 22.7.
I see. Could you update us on the compliance rate for the nooks that have registered?
So I think just a couple of years ago when we were looking at 22.7, it was 800, maybe a little bit over 800. It's a very strict law for renewals, so some fall out or decide not to continue. But I think it's in the upper like 700, I don't know, 80 or so. So I think we're kind of we don't have to worry about those. They're very compliant and they follow all the rules and renewal process.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And the short-term rentals that are in the resort area, obviously are legal. Are they required to register as well?
Yes, they are. And so we are gearing up to start enforcing on the non-registered legal in those areas. So that's the next step. But yes, there are definitely those out there that we know are operating in the resort areas, but they haven't registered.
Fantastic. So just taking the ones that are registered, the 1440 plus the nukes, the non-conforming uses, right? How many would you say we have registered so far?
So that's about 2,200 around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And lastly, with regard to registration, based on Judge Watson's order that grandfathers certain classes of people in, are we pursuing registration from those folks? And how would we even tell?
Yeah, that's the difficulty, right? I mean, it would have to be individually, whatever evidence they have, because we don't have some kind of catalog of who is renting at this. You know, it's going to be quite an undertaking to determine each one that was non-conforming.
No, I agree, and not sure how to solve that other than perhaps to do what Maui's doing. Based on what State Representative Lisa Martin just said, that the counties are now empowered to phase out these units that were grandfathered in by Judge Watson's ruling. Any idea of whether or not DPP and the city is going to introduce legislation to do exactly that?
I think where we're at right now, as Councilmember Tupola mentioned, I think we're evolving. We're kind of like settling into it. I wouldn't want to dive into something like that right now, but it's a policy question. You know, how much does the council, the mayor, really want to further downsize short-term rentals? And it's interesting because, as we heard, there's people that want to use it for income, but I think we have to figure out, we should have more discussions about that and where we want to go. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work.
I'm sorry, members, any other questions? I had a question that was to follow up with something the vice chair had mentioned with regard to registration. So what percentage of current short-term rentals register, you believe?
It's hard. Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard for us to really say. You know, like in some of the, like Waikiki, I think we can come up with general ideas about units, but there's a lot of history to some of those individual units that they operated a certain way. They had a front desk, they didn't. It's not a clear cut, like every building we can determine those are short-term rentals, those are hotel. There's a lot of, but so in any case, I can't give you a really good answer on that question, but generally I think there's thousands out there that could be registered.
Okay, and the reason I'm saying this is in light of the court ruling, I'm just wondering you know, for those who pre-existed, those who are 30-day before the ruling, they are now deemed legal, correct? So they would be NUCs as well. They would be non-conforming use short-term rentals. Is that correct?
Within
in light of the ruling, anyone who was in existence prior to enactment of law of the ordinance, they are able to continue at 30 days, not 90 days, correct? So it's only any newly established short-term rentals that have to be 90 days. Is that correct?
Prior to 22-7, it is, if we're gonna, so you're asking whether.
I guess I'm trying to say that there were a non-conforming NUCs prior to the city ordinance. And after the ruling, the judge said that for any short-term rental that was in existence at the time of the ordinance, they have to be grandfathered in. And I guess what I'm trying to ask you is that just so for us to get better control of that group, as well as anyone who has been opening up a short-term rental after, if they don't register, my question is, do you have some authority to have to use a hammer to ensure enforcement, or is it possible for us to say that if you have not registered, that you are no longer legal? Because there are a lot of legal short-term rentals that have not registered. Is that a fact or not a fact?
It's a fact that we can enforce against non-registered legal
Yes, but you don't know who they are, and they're not registering. So I'm saying, what is the enforcement tool that you could use to deem them illegal if they don't register? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so we would, if they're operating, we could say you're operating without legal registration, and we could issue a violation.
Okay, but are you doing that?
We are about to start doing that.
Okay, do you need more teeth in the ordinance to state specifically that? Because I believe that would incentivize them to register.
I don't think, I think the language is there, so we will start enforcing,
Okay.
yeah.
You know how important that is, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because otherwise, I just feel that it's going to be very challenging for you. Members, are there any other questions?
Quick one.
Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Yeah, I think if I'll talk with zoning chair, but I was going to have a presentation by OSHA because they did have actually the most accurate data about who's registered, who's not, who needs to be. And to your point about like the law changing, I think a lot of people were trying to acclimate themselves into like, is that me? Like, yes, this is you. You're now needing to register. So my question was, back in the day when we were talking about Bill 41 and prior to that was Bill 89, there was a MOU between Airbnb and VRBO with the city. And I think you weren't the director at the time when I was asking why we don't just try to renew it. Because to some of the testifiers' points, like, you know, just having that relationship with them, they were actually willing partners. Is that something you'd be open to doing?
Yes, so we recently met with Airbnb and Verbo about that MOU and whether they can do certain things without it, or if we need to renew it. There's talk about how they worry about the other. Like if having one platform do something, they're worried that the other one isn't going to do the same. And so there is a question whether it makes sense to have these individual agreements with each, or if it's a legislative, you know, across the board type of way that we deal with it. But it's ongoing talks with all three of the major ones right now and how we can best make it work. We would love for them to collaborate and work together, but at some point that might not be the best route. It just depends.
Yeah, under Bill 89, they all had separate ones. But the reason why the MOU was never enforced is because we quickly changed the law after that. So then we didn't enforce the MOU based on the new law. So I do think it'd be helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. Does DPP share the registration info with Budget and Fiscal Services so that they can attach the appropriate tax?
I think we do. Yeah, I mean, we let them know when it's a short-term rental, so that we're communicating about what they're supposed to do or what tax is appropriate.
Thank you. And then secondly, is the administration looking at expanding STRs as suggested by Mr. Jones today?
Yeah, that's a big policy question. And I think that the administration itself, they have some thoughts about that. I think that for DPP, we really want to get the enforcement under control first. And, you know, we are very supportive of expanding the housing availability, and there, you know, it's kind of a conflict. So there's a lot to discuss and think about if that is the way that the council, the mayor wants to go. But certainly DPP does have concerns.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Members, I know that the second briefing it shouldn't take too long, but if you don't mind, I'd like to invite Keiko McClellan back up now that he heard DPP's comments. And I know you have comments on the 90-day rule, but I also wanted your mana'o on the what was stated on the hosting platform compliance.
Sure. And kudos to the director and her department for doing yeoman's work on an age-old issue. So specifically on platform accountability, to Council Vice Chair Tupola's point, the work with platforms is crucial, and the data sharing that they should be doing is crucial to DPP's good work. We know that the MOUs do not work. We've tried them here in Honolulu. We've tried them in counties across Hawaii and across the country, and they don't work. They obfuscate the clear requirement. This was contemplated when we passed a law here in 2022 that says platforms must also register and they must provide information sufficient to enforce. So today, the department could send notice to any platform listing a short-term rental in Honolulu and require them to provide the information requisite to our enforcement. And conversations are nice, but as the data has shown, the conversations are intended to delay, because every day that we talk about this, another short-term rental pops up somewhere in Honolulu. That's a fact. Those are real numbers. So on the data sharing piece, 100%, you can and should be seeking that information. It was included in the legislation, and it is the law in Honolulu today. They're non-compliant, and it should be seen as a violation should a platform be asked to provide that information, and they do not. They would be non-compliant with our laws here in Honolulu. On the 90-day piece, I think the director is correct. It is very challenging to deal with a mix of listings. Keikoa used to do it. Well, how do you know? You don't know, right? When we grandfathered in the non-conforming use certificate holders in the 1980s here in Honolulu, there was a process for re-registration, to your point, Committee Chair Kiaʻāina. In 2018, on Hawaii Island, we did something similar. There was a spate of operating short-term rentals that the county wanted to deal with and bring into sunshine. And so they created a process to allow DPP to receive applications from folks who had been operating prior to the effective date of the law. The county of Hawaii just refreshed that ordinance as well, kind of doing the same thing. And so they contemplated at the department level that they would put together an application process. So in other words, you weren't just grandfathered in because you were grandfathered in. The law, or in this case, the court order, would trigger some sort of process for registration. And we would urge the department to consider working within the laws that you have, because you have great laws, and the department has great people, and trying to come up with a process to measure that. One might simply be for everything to be a violation and allow the appeals process to vet out who is and who isn't legal. One might be creating a process like we did in Honolulu in the 80s and like we did on the Big Island and we are doing on the Big Island now to allow for some sort of registration for those units. The only other piece, zoning chair, would be to then institute another bill to make all short-term rentals of 90 days or less illegal, which based on the new law, you could. You may not need to do that given the tools that you have.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your insight on
Of
that.
course.
I would say that, I guess for me, when I was working back during Bill 41 with Kiaʻāina Hull from Kauai, the MOU that he had between them and him was working, and he was able to kind of get it down. I think for me, when I met with each of the platforms, the reason why the one here didn't work is because there was a indication in the law that in Bill 89 that there would be X amount of B&Bs versus TVRs, and then actually no B&Bs were approved at that time. So I remember I read the MOU and something said, once the first B&B is registered, then this MOU is enacted, and then it never actually got approved, so there was none. Right now, I think we only have like 39 or something, but they were hanging on to that line of the first B&B needs to be issued by DPP, and then shortly after we started discussing Bill 41.
That's a really good point. And when you think about it in that context, Council Member, a third-party multi-billion-dollar corporation is telling the city and county of Honolulu, we'll comply when you pass a law that allows us to make these things that are illegal legal. Right? And that is our experience with platforms across the country and across the world, right? And so, and to the Kauai example, I work very closely with the County of Kauai on a number of issues to include short-term rentals. And I said this in our last hearing on this, I'll give you one number, 14%. 14%. That's the minimum number of residentially zoned units on the County of Kauai that are being operated as short-term rentals, legal and illegal. 14%. I don't think that that is what we want to model given our current housing crisis. And while Kauai has a way of regulating what they seem and deem as legal, their housing crisis is as bad as ours, if not worse, based on that number. So we're trying to do a little bit better here. And you've got great laws, Vice Chair.
Yeah, true.
Thank you so much. We're going to actually move on, if you don't mind, to the final. Thank you very much for participating. Moving to agenda item number 6, informational briefing update by DPP on its building permit process backlog, including the status of building permit applications for Bill 7, affordable rental housing projects. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the chamber. Do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
And I see no one standing up to the podium to testify, so we're going to move on to remote testimony. Do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, with that, let's hear from the Director of Planning and Permitting.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our update on the building permit backlog. First, we have an update on our data for residential code review. The left column is when we first reported at EMLA, the numbers and times, and then as of June 23rd, pre-screen 3 days, residential code 12 days on average, approved to issue 1 day, total duration on average 374 days. And I want to note that the 12 days average for residential code review is a single review cycle on average. And so the 374 days may most likely will include more than one review cycle, plus other agency reviews and time with the applicant. Similarly with commercial code, update, we're 3 days pre-screen, 84 days commercial code review on average. That's electrical, mechanical, and building review. And 1 day approved to issue, the duration 460 days, 66 days on average. We are concerned about this much longer time period. So we're looking at, we believe part of it is some backlog on the applicant side, and maybe some other issues that we need to see what's going on. We have a clarity update. That's our new permitting software. And drum roll, please. We have a new name because we named these things. And we're calling it H&L Build, kind of like, so, you know, H&L Pay, there's different H&L systems within the city. So it's H&L Build, and we're building tomorrow today through this new system. We've gone over some of the key features. I'm just going to really quickly: seamless online integration of H&L Build, comprehensive tracking for optimum transparency, and improved collaboration. Today, if you go on to Posse, you can only really do building permits online, but this is going to cover the vast majority of everything we do. And it's a long list of, you know, trenching, discretionary permits. Everything is online, so you can sit at your desk and take care of all these permits without having to use paper or come in. So the system itself relies heavily on training internally and externally. Like, that's the major part of what we're doing now and for the next couple months, so that everyone is ready to completely switch over to this new system. We've had so many internal trainings, in person, online, video recordings are being made. Externally, we will soon go out to the big stakeholders like BIA, AIA, and let them understand what this system is all about. This is basically what the system looks like online. It's web-based, and our target launch date is in August. Related to our building permit processing is hiring and training. So this next slide gives you stats on our residential, which is the purple, staffing for review, residential review, and then the blue, that's all our commercial. So residential, we're pretty much well staffed up, but definitely electrical, mechanical, and building on the commercial, we're working hard to fill those positions. That has been the major struggle. NPDES on the is stormwater quality, where you may have heard about some backlog, but we've brought that down and we're fully staffed there. So DPP didn't really do standardized training in the past, but in fiscal year 25, we have definitely upped that. And so training for our reviewers and our inspectors on international building code, residential code, report writing, which is very important. This has been a major step for DPP, and we will continue to add to this and make this standardized for our staff. It will help with consistency of reviews and just basic staff knowledge. All right, and now moving on to the Bill 7 projects, we're gonna give you some status on the projects, talk about the 90-day approval, disapproval requirement, and then address some criticisms and misconceptions. So this, and you're not meant to read this fine print, but it basically, by color, shows you what's happening for the 57 total Bill 7 projects. I think it's 58 as of today, but the green indicates what we've issued or approved. The orange indicates that it's with the applicant, and the blue, it indicates it is with DPP. So you can see there's a lot of orange there. And what the law states, because there's been some question, and I just want to say, the law states that upon acceptance of a complete application for a Bill 7 building permit, the building official shall approve or disapprove the application within 90 days. If the building official fails to approve or disapprove within 90 days, the building permit application will be deemed approved. So if we automatically disapprove today, we would disapprove the 32 with the applicant, basically. So we don't want to do that. We're working with the applicants. They don't want that to happen. We want these projects to succeed. If we approve all 32, they haven't finished code review, and we don't want that either as a matter of safety. And generally, in most cases, the applicant isn't asking for us to approve at 90 days. They want to continue the process, to go through the review, to make sure that their projects are compliant. So in a recent Civil Beat article, there were many comments made that we don't agree with. For affordable housing, it shouldn't be just wait in line like everybody else. Create a standard checklist, make sure a project has what is necessary and move on. Quick, fast, and clean. I find it hard to believe Bill 7 developer who's reading the rules of the program carefully is going to come in with incomplete plans. And if there are problems, any issue should be resolvable within 90 days. I don't think this is hard. If we were able to do this when my grandmother was my age with ease, why can't we do it again? These projects don't have unique, complex safety considerations like a tunnel or a power plant would have. So we'd like to respond to these comments. Number one, DPP does prioritize and has for at least the last 2 years put Bill 7 projects at the top of the pile when they come in so that they can be reviewed and given back to the applicant. They are not waiting in line and are bypassing other important projects. And Bill 7 projects are in fact complex. They involve not just ROH Chapter 32. That's in addition to mechanical, electrical, structural, and zoning codes. And additionally, there's stormwater quality, wastewater, board of water supply, fire, and traffic review branch. So I just wanted to show you this. This is one of the Bill 7 projects that was approved. This is 94 pages. I think you got a copy, and I wanted to kind of open it up and show you, but this is a lot. And if you go through some of the pages, it's very difficult to get through within 90 days this very complex system that is very important for all the details that it has. And you can just keep scrolling. So this project is a typical Bill 7 project, but it's not cookie cutter in any shape or form. There are so many details. You can just keep scrolling. Oh, it's taking forever. But so if you're looking at there's site development requirements, there's structural, electrical, and so on. Can you go? And then, so on page 64, I don't know if you can get to that. Okay, so this is page 64, and this is if you look on the right, I believe it's a mechanical, I'm not an engineer, but I think it's like mechanical plans, and you see how much is going on this sheet, and this is just one sheet. To the right, you see the triangles. The number within the triangles is the number of cycles that this sheet has gone through. And I think at the very bottom, it says Board of Water Supply. It had 10 cycles. But the intricacy, the detail, these plans go through, the reviewer must go through every page because things don't happen in isolation. So a mechanical panel or whatever issue, it's not going to just be isolated to one page. It needs coordination among the different disciplines. Mechanical may affect electrical, even zoning. A change in the egress of vehicles may affect, the electrical panels that are outside of the building. There's just so much coordination that's required, and what our reviewers do is they have to understand how these things all work together, or if it's not on one sheet, it might be on the architectural sheet, but it's not on the electrical. It's very complex, and so I think it's easy to think they just need to meet the requirements of ROH Chapter 32, but that is just one part of the overall review of this project. It is not simple. I think if it came in perfect, yes, it could be done in 90 days, but there's so much, and I wouldn't expect necessarily that it's going to come in perfect. It's very complicated. So with that, I just wanted to kind of give you a better idea when you talk about what our reviewers are looking at. And what our reviewers also have noticed, the designers and contractors for Bill 7 projects, a lot of them came from designing just single residential, single family homes, and then they kind of moved into Bill 7 projects. But now it's a commercial project. You know, it's not one unit with one system, mechanical, electrical. It affects all the other units in the building, and you have to understand what that means. You know, if the panel, you want to be able to access a mechanical panel within your unit and not affect all the other units. I mean, there's very important considerations different than what single-family home construction and design include. All right. So you can go to the PowerPoint. So lastly, I just want to address that why shot clock approvals, which there are a few within our rules, don't work. It is misguided and dangerous to the public to approve building permits strictly on a 90-day shot clock. Everyone, including DPP, wants building permits issued quickly, but it should not be at the cost of life and safety. Sorry, is it going? A building permit is not simply a piece of paper. It certifies that the plans submitted conform to all codes that ensure life, health, and safety. The persistent narrative that the county permitting agencies are solely to blame for the delay in the issuance of building permits is untrue and detracts focus from the core causes of longer permitting times. Shot clock approvals do not speed up permitting, but promote incomplete code review. And with that, that's all I have. Please follow us on Instagram at honolulu.dpp. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, this was a very thorough report. I just have two quick questions. So first, with regard to the time frame, both for residential and commercial code. So I guess I don't believe I really understood that on the commercial code review section, it could be multiple reviews, and so that's what's making it longer. So my question is, what are you doing to help in decreasing that threshold? I mean, do you have any best practices that you're having for your planners to work with applicants, or what? We need to see a light at the end of the tunnel here.
Yes, absolutely. And so I forgot to report on CivCheck, our AI, which is also coming up this fall. That is a real game changer because it guides the applicant, it educates them about what is required in the plans, and it helps our staff as well. That's going to cut down review cycles substantially. It's going to come in certified by the CivCheck review before it's even a building permit application. And that's going to already have so many of the requirements already in place and compliant. So that's really going to help. We continue to educate our staff, and we want to do more education to the public, to the designers, so that they come in with better plans. And I think more staffing helps too, because we do want staff to be able to work directly with applicants on a more regular basis. Right now, I think we're just trying to get these systems tested and trained. There's a lot going on, but that's the eventual goal, that people can have more one-on-one.
And can I ask, how are people going to access that? Is it going to be through the Honolulu Build site?
The CivCheck?
Yes,
The CivCheck is, when we roll it out at first, it's going to come, you're going to go through our, through DPP, but it will need to go through CivCheck first before it becomes a building permit application.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So it's not part of the Honolulu Build system. It's pre?
Yeah, it's pre. At some point, we might integrate it into, because there's not just H&L Build, which is clarity. There's also Evolve E-Plans, which is the electronic plans, and then there's CivCheck, which is the review.
But CivCheck is a DPP tool. That's not for applicants, correct? Or is it?
It's for applicants are going to submit their plans
Via that?
through CivCheck.
Oh, got it. Okay. And then with regard to the, your new website, it's going to be on the DPP website?
Yes.
What is your, what is the new portal going to be called?
The new, H&L build, and then we don't have the address yet.
Yeah, got it.
But we will share that when it's ready.
Okay, and when is CivCheck going to come online?
By the fall. For residential, single-family residential, new build, and alterations.
So,
and then, like 6 months out from there, it'll be commercial alterations.
Got it. Okay, so next time you do this, then you have that in here for us with regard to time frame. And so collectively, all that you're talking about is going to help with the overall decrease of the permitting process. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so are you telling me that by the ending of the year, we should see a dramatic decrease in the total average duration for both residential and commercial?
Yes, hoping that is the case.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you guys for all your hard work. Members, any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Aloha, Director. This residential code, commercial code page, I know you said it, but I just wanted to make it clear because I did read the response you gave to BIA when they questioned that these numbers are fairly low compared to what their members have been reporting. I think the phrase you wrote was, while the DPP code review processing times have come down, the overall permit times have not. So just for clarity, and I think maybe if we ever look at this again, we have to write that on here for clarity. We are only referring to the time that the permit is with DPP, because I think it just sometimes misleads people to see that it's down to 3 days, 6 months, when really they've been waiting a year and a half. So I think, I know I mentioned this before, Director, but the reality of a permit is so much longer than this. So I appreciate all the updates on the other ends, right? The CivCheck, and then now we're gonna have the Honolulu build. And of course, whenever we talk about the actual permit process, we have to be putting in when the certificate of occupancy comes, because that whole entire process is what the people that we service have to go through. And so they never get to have these 6 months, 3 days benefits. They're always up around the 180 to maybe 300 longer days that they're waiting. The other thing I wanted to mention was, if there was anything in your hiring stats, and thank you for including this, that was affected by this past budget, if you could just write to us. I know that they're still going through some iterations, but we just wanted to make sure that whatever you needed in the budget was there, because you're on a roll. I mean, if this really happens, that the new, software comes in, we've been waiting a long time for this. So anything that's affecting your staffing, please let us know so that we can make those changes if needed. Lastly, we've talked many times about this 90-day shot clock thing in previous hearings, previous years. Are you suggesting that we change the law? Because basically you're saying the shot clock is not a way to move. And then I have developers saying, like, why do you guys have this in the law if you guys never follow it? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's misleading to have it. I think the real issue is we want to review it quickly, but everyone is part of that whole process. And you don't want to be caught where you're approving something that's not code compliant. We just have to focus on the core issues.
Understood.
So, yeah.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? I want to thank you for the thorough presentation.
Thank you.
Mahalo, everyone, for being here today. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.